Hey kids, welcome to the Far Out Podcast, your late night college of useful life knowledge. And boy, are we going to go to school today because I have a lot that I want to discuss. This episode of the podcast is pretty much going to cover the month of May for me, as I did a lot of things that I want to talk about. So let's just dive right in. And to start things off, we're going to talk about what I did for Mother's Day. And you might be thinking, well, Jim, didn't you just spend Mother's Day with your mom, like the good son you are? And the answer to that question is no, I did not. I was actually with my father, which is ironic, but it's the truth. I was with my dad fishing on Mother's Day. But have no fear. My mom was aware. She knew that the plans that my dad and I had existed on the actual day of Mother's Day. And so I did not spend the literal calendar day of Mother's Day with my mom. Her and I celebrated later. But the reason why I was with my dad on that specific day is because Mother's Day marked the fishing opener for the 2025 season. And as you know, I'm a big sports fan. I love baseball, basketball, football. I'm getting into hockey. But all of those sports and those activities are really more fun to watch than they are to participate, at least in my opinion, and for what I like to do. I still enjoy outdoor activities. I really enjoy disc golf and known as frolf, and I also like to hunt. I'm getting into that with my friends. But really, what I really enjoy doing is fishing, and my dad and I love to do that. Love to do that together. And for us, the start of a new fishing season is a big time of the year, and so we plan to be there day one for the start of the 2025 season, which again fell on Mother's Day. And my mom knew that. Again, she was aware, so there was no issue with that. But yeah, there's a saying that you know a bad day of fishing is better than a good day at work, and sometimes that's true. But my dad and I, we had a really great time fishing because we like to do things a certain way out there on the lake. And I think when people think of fishing, they think of the classic shot of a kid standing on a dock with his pole, and he's got the worm on the hook and the bobber and whatnot, and that's fun. That's very great. But there's kind of a ceiling for that. You really can only get like bluegills and stuff like that. But there are other kinds of fishing. You can do ice fishing, which I've done, and that's a lot of fun as well. You could do deep sea fishing, which I've never done, but I would love to at some point in my life. But what my dad and I like to do is this method called trolling, where rather than be still on dock, what you do is that you're sitting in your boat and you either put your actual motor onto like impulse power, so a very low output level, or you actually get a genuine bona fide trolling motor, which pretty much does the same thing, and you're essentially just putzing around the lake inside your boat, and so you're just going just fast enough to get kind of like this gentle breeze, but it's good, it's relaxing, it's quite enjoyable. You can still talk and drink and eat and whatnot. And that's what my dad and I like to do. And the reason why we do that is because when we fish, we primarily go after northerns, northern pike. And what they do is that they love movement in their eating and hunting habits. And so the the motion of the boat generates some of the movement to get them interested. But to get them even more interested is that rather than using a traditional, worm and bobber setup on your fishing pole, what you would do with a northern to go after a northern pike is that you would take your line and you would attach what's called a spoon, or rather a spinner, and it does as advertised. When you throw it into the water, combined with the motion of the boat as your lure trails behind you, it spins, and this creates this movement effect that northern pike find to be enticing. And northern pike, what they like to do is that they will be on the bottom of the lake and they look up, and so as they're looking up, they're looking for movement. And when they see something that they think is going to be yummy and delicious, they will go up, they will strike that point, so they'll bite. Excuse me, I just burped. And then after they get what they want in their mouth, they will dive straight back down. They will plunge deep into the lake, and that creates this great game of tug of war that you, as the fishermen, deal with because when you're trolling in your boat, like I said, my dad and I, we just like to shoot the breeze, eat lunch and whatnot. But then when a northern gets on, you feel it. It's go time. Your whole pole lurches forward, and it's like, oh my gosh, like all hands on deck type stuff. So yeah, and it's just this great wear down game for the fish because Northern loves to put up a good fight. They really enjoy, like I said, going down deep and continuing to swim. But eventually, they're going to get tired, and so after they're swimming, they will lay down, they'll play dead, and they're limp, and you will start to reel them in. But then they wake up again, then they go down even further, and so it's this game of attrition that takes several minutes, and it's a lot of fun. Really, really enjoyable. And just because you get good strikes, as I described, doesn't mean you'll get keepers. But for my dad and I, we had a great start to the 2025 season because between the two of us, we had three keepers for Northern Pike, and they all put up great fights. And the fish were the length of roughly 26 inches for one, 27 for the second, and 31 inches for the third, plus or minus perhaps a few centimeters. And then that equals out to roughly 4 pounds for the first one, 4 pounds for the second one, and 7 pounds for the third one, plus or minus a few ounces there. And yeah, it was really great to not only have such an active day of fishing, because we had multiple fish on, multiple strikes, but to get three keepers out of the whole deal, that was a great day. And we actually, we saved the fish and we cut them up, we filleted them, and we have the fish meat preserved. We intend to use that in some kind of meal later this year. And yeah, it was a great day of fishing. Like I said, the going after northern pike it's I don't know if action's the right word, but like it's a really physical kind of fishing that does require a good amount of strength and patience, and it's a lot of fun. And so if you're someone who maybe has never fished before, even if you're someone who has fished before and you're like, I don't know, I'm kind of bored with it, I really recommend trolling. I think it's great, and even when it's kind of in its slump, like when there's not a lot of hits, again, you have this motion going on, you have the breeze, you can have conversation, and then when it gets on, it's on, and it's a lot of fun. And so yeah, that's the start of the fishing season for my dad and I, and that was something I did earlier this month. And yeah, I just found it a lot of fun. Minnesota offers some great lakes to go fishing at, so if you're ever in the Minnesota area, I recommend you do some fishing there. But what I did after my fishing trip, kids, is that I began another trip, one that took me to several locations, and one of those locations was Minneapolis, where I got to see Katy Perry live in concert. And if you've listened to the podcast for a little bit, you'll know that I'm a big fan of Katy Perry, so much so that I did an entire episode dedicated to her music catalog, and I will drop a link in the description down below to that episode if you feel like giving that a listen. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Katy Perry. I think she's a lot of fun. I think she has a great sound. And I got introduced to her through my sister because we saw her live in concert many years ago on the Prismatic World Tour. That was when she was debuting her album Prism. And that, of course, had songs on there like Roar and Dark Horse and so on and so forth. And so this time I got to see her on the Lifetimes tour. And I got to be honest, I was a little nervous going into this tour because, again, the Prismatic World Tour was for the album Prism, which I think is really tremendous. This tour is for her latest work, which is the album 143 or 1432. She kind of released a two-part thing. Either way, I'm not a big fan of this latest album for her. I think that I don't think she's fallen off. That people like to say that about artists, but I just think that lately her newer work has not been as good as her older stuff. So I was a little nervous going into this one. However, this tour, this show that I was at, was really kind of a greatest hits montage for her because she actually kind of had this whole quasi storyline going on throughout her show. It wasn't just a performance; there was a little bit of a narrative to it. And again, from the get go with this, I was also nervous because the setup is that in during her concert, she fights an AI, an artificial intelligence, and when that was debuted, I was like, oh man, like you could hear my eyes roll. I was like, oh great, how original, and there's this art that plays across the screens and whatnot. And it looked fine enough, but what I realized is that AIs, well, throughout the concert, she reveals that AIs, you know, uh, they consume information, they consume knowledge and whatnot, and so to to fight this AI in her concert, she had to go through her entire music catalog to accumulate music knowledge, so to speak. And then that gave her the ability to, quote, air quote, defeat the AI. And so she goes from album to album: Teenage Dream, Prism, Smile, 143, and all the others. And it was really really awesome because she did play a lot of her old music and a lot of her hits, and there were even a few songs in there that she mixed in that I did not think I would enjoy, but like they really were bangers. Like Dark Horse, for example. Not a big fan of that song. I think it's fine. Hearing it live with that bass, that was tremendous. Like the place was jumping, and this place was packed to the brim. Like I don't think I've ever seen the Target Center quite that full. Lots of families, lots of kids, lots of people dressed up in cool costumes. Very fun, very colorful to see. Just a really great atmosphere, and that was really nice. Um, Funny enough, though, the concert did not start on time. I don't know what the reason was behind this, but there was actually like a 2 hour, 15-minute delay. Like, I was a little worried the concert was going to get canceled. I had heard that there was a stage malfunction, which I actually believe because throughout her concert, her whole setup was really intricate. Like her stage is designed like an infinity symbol. And so she and her backup dancers are constantly either walking, jogging, or running across this looping stage. Then there's wire work in there, so she's getting suspended up into the air, or someone else is, and then of course there's pyrotechnics. And with this wire work, there's times where she will like float or fly across the whole venue. So she's going up by the left side and over the right side and over the middle. And there's all these rising platforms, and so it wasn't just like a stage and a mic with some lights and some screens. No, this was a whole production, quasi acrobatic even. So look, if there was a genuine delay because of that, totally worth the wait. I had a blast. I thought it was great. I thought she brought the house down. I really did, and it was really nice to see her perform again. And I'll go so far as to say that seeing her live actually made me like her more and made me like her latest album more too, because I think that she's one of these artists that sounds, really good, if not better, live. Because like there's nothing worse than being really into a musical act. Then you go see them live and you realize, oh, they sound better on my phone. The Spotify version sounds better. And I'm not gonna name names on anyone, but I have seen some musical acts where I'm like, yeah, a concert is an experience, but I'll never want to do this again. If she came back later this year and next year, I would buy another ticket. I think it was a lot of fun, and she got pretty interactive with the crowd too. At one point, she called on people like to come up on stage with her. Like she said, hey, one lucky fan will get to come out, on here and help me sing and whatnot. And she, the spotlight's going around the stadium, and it stops on this girl who had special needs. I don't know specifically what she had, but it looked like she had Down syndrome or something akin to that. And she was physically walking slowly, and like her mother came with her too up on stage. I didn't know how this was going to go. I didn't know how she would react, how Perry would react, or how the crowd would react, and it all went beautifully. They go up on stage, the daughter and the mother, and they're taking pictures. And the girl whose name is Jessica, she was funny. She was on it. She was in. She was in full costume too, and so she was singing. And they gave her like a little like a rattler thing that she could do for like a kind of instrument, not like a maraca, but kind of like a little ball filled with that shaking stuff, and then probably just some beads. And so she was getting into that as well. And at the beginning, I could tell that she was a little nervous, but as Katy Perry went on, she got into it too, and so did the mom, and so it was really really great. And she did like 3 or 4 songs. I don't think it was just like a 2 minute thing. Like she was up there for what I thought was a minute, and I thought it was great. And after that section of the show ended, Katy Perry says, let's take a hug, or let's take a hug, let's get a hug and take a selfie and whatever. And so that happens, and as that's happening, the whole place starts chanting Jessica, and it was really awesome. Like anyone would have loved to have had that experience. I would have like if the spotlight stopped on me and they're like, you, yes, you, come on down, I would have been like, oh my gosh, and if they would have started shouting my name, I would have been like, what, but yeah, so that was just really really great. And the lights were really fun. The pyrotechnics were great. At one point, when Katy Perry has to quote fight the AI, there's people that come out on stage dressed up in like this kind of techno gear, and Katy Perry effectively wielded Darth Maul's lightsaber, like it was red and all, and she's fake hitting these people, and so as she's hitting them, quote hitting them, they're flying back on their own wires. She's doing this all while singing. I mean, this concert was a show. So I mean, yeah, really entertaining, really fun, great sound. I of course bought some merch, and I just had a blast. I really did, and I was very very impressed. It exceeded my expectations. And so, Katy Perry, if you're listening, and I know that you are, please come back to Minneapolis whenever you get the chance, and then come on the Far Out podcast as well. And then after my time with Miss Perry, I then boarded a flight and I went to somewhere I've never been before, that being Washington, D.C., and also Baltimore, because that's where my flight landed. But yes, kids, I have a friend who lives in Washington, D.C. His name is Luke Larson, and I've recorded a podcast or two with him, and I will drop a link down in the description below to his episodes. Our first episode we recorded, via the internet over Zoom, yeah, because we weren't able to get together. Because again, he lives in Washington. But this has been something that we've been planning for quite a long time. This is something that we've talked about since he moved to Washington, about me coming to visit him. And then when I told him that I wanted him to be a guest on the podcast, my preferred method is for my guests and I to get together face to face. That way the conversation flows more naturally. There's less interruptions with something, with like a technology, glitch, something like that. And so there was a plan that perhaps I would go there, of course, to visit him and to see the sights and the sounds, but really it was to record an episode of the podcast. And then after we recorded our first one together, we got talking after the recording ended, and he was like, "Hey, man, the Twins are coming to Baltimore to play the Orioles," and he's like, "Would you want to, align a trip for yourself to come to Washington and then watch the Twins?" And that's really how our friendship began. It's where it really, where our bond really really started, was with our appreciation of baseball and the Minnesota Twins. And me being, a dullard, I thought, well, aren't you a Washington Nationals fan? Like, aren't you kind of a backdoor Nationals fan? And isn't that the team that we should try to get, tickets to see them play the Twins? And he was like, no, Baltimore's like a short commute from Washington, which I was unaware. I thought they were farther apart. So I was like, yeah, I want to see the Orioles. I want to see the Twins play somewhere else. So let's go. So yeah, we did just that. I planned a trip around the Twins playing the old Baltimore Orioles, and that took me to Washington shortly after my Katy Perry concert. And so I did a lot of traveling recently, which is something I don't normally do. But yeah, going well. Let's start with the Twins game first. Going to Baltimore was a really awesome experience, and getting to see a different ballpark was really really cool too. It was Camden Yards, home of the Baltimore Orioles, the Oreos, as they're called. And look, not to kill Camden Yards, not to kill the Orioles, but it's not the greatest ballpark I've been to. You would think my favorite one would be Target Field, home of the Minnesota Twins. But for me, in terms of literal appearance and layout and atmosphere, I'd say for me it's Kauffman Stadium, home of the Kansas City Royals, the Royals with cheese. And I don't know why they have this as part of their design, but in Kansas City they have this thing called Fountains Up, because I guess there's lots of fountains around the city and whatnot and around the ballpark. And so there's constant flowing water at the stadium. And then when a Royals player would say hit a home run, the fountains would shoot water, and so it's a cool thing to see, and that's really awesome. That gives that ballpark a lot of character. And Target Field, of course, I think is very beautiful. I really enjoy that stadium. I think it's really awesome, and it's home to my favorite team, being the Minnesota Twins. And then, so Camden Yards with the Orioles, they had a high bar to clear, and again, I really enjoyed my time there. I'm not trying to kill the ballpark, nor am I trying to kill Baltimore, because I had a great time there. But it just didn't stand out to me as anything special. I really enjoyed my time, and I really had a fun time at the ballpark, and it was a great game. But just in terms of overall appearance and stuff, Camden Yards, not the greatest ballpark I've been to. But yeah, I hope to get to more ballparks in my future and see how they stack up against each other. But yeah, I'd say amongst the three that I've gone, it's Kauffman Yards, Target Field, Camden Yards, and whatnot. But it was still very cool. I really enjoyed it, just getting to travel and getting to see my team as well. And I got to be honest, Baltimore kind of has this vibe around it of being incredibly hostile and being just frankly not very nice. And I'm sure there are sections of that. I mean, you go anywhere in any city, you're going to get, rough encounters, you're going to see mean people, so on and so forth. But just speaking for myself and for my friend Luke, after our baseball game, we went walking around Baltimore, and we were in full Twins gear and whatnot. And I honestly kind of thought that we might get jeered at, like, hey, this is Ravens country. This is Orioles country. Get out of here, Twins fans. Get out of here, Vikings. But I mean this genuinely, and I mean this sincerely. There were lots of people. Every encounter we had with bystanders, they were like, "Hey, I heard the Orioles and the Twins played today. Looks like the Twins won. Good for you. Have a great day." Or, "Oh man, what a fun day at the ballpark. Better luck next time for my birds, but go Twins." Or, "Hey, what a cool Twins hat." I mean, people were so nice and friendly in Baltimore, which I frankly did not expect. And so, yeah, that was really, really, really cool and fun to see. And then me and my friend Luke, we walked down to Old Bay, and we saw some ships that were docked, some old classic looking naval vessels, and then behind them a little bit were some old submarines as well, and they were really cool to see. Again, just seeing these massive vessels. Of course, they're refurbished, and whatnot. It's not like they're in use. You can tour them and whatnot, but just seeing them in the sense of scale with them is really remarkable. And my friend Luke and I, we had this conversation about how, like, nowadays, the car is the way to get around. The plane is the way to do, long distance traveling. But like, imagine living back in those times when the ship was that was the premier mode of transportation. That was a sign of wealth and military and long form excursions. Like, just imagine those times. And we had a really interesting conversation about that too. But yeah, and then moving on from the actual game itself and just being in Washington D.C., it really blew me away. And I know this is going to sound incredibly nerdy, but it's just the truth. My real only you know reference point for Washington D.C. has frankly been movies. It's been stuff like spy movies, you know, espionage, thriller, so on and so forth. And you just see the landmarks. You see the White House, you see, the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, stuff like that. Or National Treasure. I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. Stuff like that, and all that. So I have this view that's very narrow and very hyper stylized of Washington D.C. And then to actually go there and to be literally boots on the ground and to see the streets and to see the people and to just get a semblance of how everyday life is when this city, this location is unlike any other in the country, because this Washington D.C. is frankly the engine of the country. It's where government takes place. It's where bills are signed, bills are shot down, laws are made, so on and so forth, And it really was a lot to take in. And I'm just being honest. I'm totally speaking from my heart here. getting to walk those streets where literally around every corner is some type of plaque, some type of monument, or some incredibly historic and important building, it really, my trip overall made me feel more patriotic. It gave me a sense of more specific reference for when or for how stuff happens in this country. Now I know where the Capitol is and what it looks like. The White House too. And so now instead of just seeing pictures, I've got to see these things, face to face. And it really did it gave me a different perspective on things. And I really appreciated it. And I'll go so far as to say that after my trip to DC, I think that if you're an American, especially going to Washington, D.C., and doing what I just did, seeing the sights, seeing the sounds, and not just playing tourist, but, really soaking up the information and trying to learn as much as you can about your country, I frankly think going to Washington, D.C. is a must. I think it's a must trip, especially if you're an American, because again, it does provide those reference points to frankly just how so much of our lives are intertwined and how these big decisions are made. And it just made me feel good to be an American. And look, the country has its problems, but it also has its upsides. And I just feel that being in the city highlighted more of its upsides than it did its negatives. But of course, I saw some of the negatives on display as well. There were protesters of every bunch, from a bill to a war to just they don't like one party versus the other. I saw that. I also saw supporters, people wearing, gear for conservatives, people wearing gear for Democrats. I saw the signs, and all that stuff. It's a very lively, hustling and bustling place that I just found to be really really honestly intoxicating as a place. I don't know if I could ever live there. I think I'd honestly be kind of consumed by it. But I would love to visit on. I mean, if I had the income to do this, I would honestly try to visit like maybe once a year, twice a year type thing. Um, because there was a lot of stuff that I missed because there's so much to see, so much to do. You can't possibly all do it in just a couple of days. But there's also things that I'd love to go back to. I mean, again, just seeing the Washington Monument, seeing the Lincoln Memorial, like for me, it wasn't just a one and done. I very much have a desire to go back there again and to sit and ponder. And like, there's that thing called the reflection pool, for example. That's where Captain America ran by Sam Wilson, and said on your left, and that's by the Washington Monument, and just going there to the reflection pool. I mean, it really is a point of reflection. It really is a time where you can kind of gather your thoughts and think and stuff. And as I said, Steve Rogers in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, he's running by the reflection pool. And so I recreated that. I did that myself. So I was running past people saying on your left. I'm sure they thought I was a moron, but it was, when in Rome, so I was like, I got to do it. And yeah, so that was really fun too. I got to live a little bit like Captain America there for a bit as well. And then one of my favorite things to do in the city, frankly, honestly, my favorite thing might have been not seeing any monuments, not seeing any of these buildings I just previously mentioned. It was honestly going to one of the art museums in in the city. And Washington has several amazing museums, many must see. But there was one that I went to that I believe is called the National Gallery of Art Museum, and it's enormous. I mean, the ceilings are huge, the walls are vast. I mean, they have enormous paintings on display, not the little things that you see in a hotel or the things you can buy at a Hobby Lobby, but I'm talking these huge, massive canvases that you have to just stand back to see the whole thing. And I'm being honest, I'm being 100% genuine here. Walking through the various hallways and the various displays, it literally brought a tear to my eye because I'm seeing some of the greatest art in the world on display. People who have this remarkable sense of creativity and dexterity and control and patience and drive and just putting paint to canvas and they're able to draw human faces and eyes, and to get this great depth of field and the sense of scale, or to get incredibly intimate. Like, it really took my breath away. And again, it literally brought me to tears a few times, because I really appreciate art, and I think it's something that we should value. And there was one thing that I saw in particular while in the museum that I went to that just stopped me dead in my tracks. And that was, I saw a local artist doing a recreation of a piece. She literally had out her own easel and canvas and paints, and she was painting her own version of a piece of art in the museum. And I, first of all, I didn't even know this was like legal. Like, I didn't know you could do this, because, like, I mean, God forbid, what if you're swapping out paintbrushes and you trip and you spill and you damage, an actual piece of art? Like, what, how is this allowed? And, like, can you just go into a museum and recreate something for resale? I asked her several questions, and she was so nice, and she gave me her card. Her name is Marci Green. That's Marci, and then green is in the color green. And she was so kind, and she was so just friendly and approachable. And she was like, "Hi, how are you? Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from North Dakota." And she was like, "Oh, you're a long way from home." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." And we just had a conversation, and she was so modest. I mean, just God bless her. She was like, "Yeah," she's like, "I know it's not going to be as good as the original, but I'm trying to get close, but I can't get quite, you know, the lines the way they were." And I was like, "Ma'am, like, this is literally breathtaking what you're doing." So I was like, even if you're getting to like a 9.5 versus a 10, I was like, don't sell yourself short. I mean, this is a gift from God, what you're doing. And I literally just sat back and I watched her paint, and it was really, really amazing. And she told me about how this is allowed, how local artists can contact the museums, and they're allowed to go in and do just this, and that they give a donation to the museum, and then whatever they sell their recreation for, they will also give a kickback to the museum as well. And I guess they're totally in favor of doing this. I guess this is something that's allowed. And as she was talking, and as she was saying how supervised this is, I looked around and there was security everywhere. And so I was like, oh yeah. I was like, this is nothing new. But look, getting to see art is incredible in its own right. Getting to see art literally be created, to be literally made, again, took my breath away and brought me to tears. And I just sat back and I watched her. And yeah, it was really, really phenomenal. And so again, the lady in question who I got to see paint, her name is Marci Green. She gave me her card, and on it has her email address and her contact info. And I'll put that down in the description below as well, in case any of y'all want to reach out to her or check out her own catalog, because she really was just tremendous to talk to, really nice, really kind. And yeah, I really, really appreciated her time. And then, of course, I went on with my journey throughout Washington, D.C., and I saw, like I said, the Lincoln Memorial. I saw the Washington Monument. I got to see the White House, where security there was unbelievable. It was like out of a movie. Everything from, Secret Service to cops to people fully kitted with rifles and armor plates on, down to bike cops. I mean, like, just really, you couldn't get in there if you tried. I mean, they have every inch of that area covered, and so that was really great too. Did not get to see the president. I didn't get to see anyone important walking around on the grass or on the streets, and whatnot, which is a bummer. But I mean, come on, it's not like I'm gonna just bump into the president while I'm out getting my coffee. Hi, how are you? But that would have been tremendous. But then there was another part that I really appreciated as well, and that's going to there's a fountain set up at the National World War II Monument that overlooks the Washington Monument. And this was also really tremendous, and this was really a highlight of my trip as well, is getting to see this whole view of everything. You have, again, the Washington Monument in the back, and then you have this elaborate fountain display. And then around the fountain are these plaques and these memorials set up to World War II and to fallen soldiers, and they catalog what we as a country did throughout the war. And it was really powerful. Again, The flowing water, much like how I talked about how I like Kauffman Stadium because they have the flowing water. There was just something really powerful about this the semblance of constantly moving water as you're reading through history and as you're walking these historic grounds that really just again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but it really did make me feel more patriotic, and I really appreciated my time there. And I just sat, I sat by this fountain display, and I just, no phone, no earbuds. I just listened to the water, and I just thought about my country, and I thought about what it meant to be an American, and it really did make me think deeply and ponder. And you can't fake that. You can't buy that. And I feel that that kind of thought process can only happen when you actually are boots on the ground here in DC. And so again, I really do recommend that people go check it out. And then also another thing that I did while I was in DC as well is that I went to the National Archive where the Declaration of Independence is held, and so is the Bill of Rights and various other important documents. And this is where, of course, Nicolas Cage said, "I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence and National Treasure." And even though that movie came out like in 2008, 2006, like it's almost 20 years old. You go into the gift shop because, of course, the tour ends in the gift shop. You go into the gift shop, the first thing they have front and center is this huge display of National Treasure with the poster, with the mugs and the hats and the shirts. Like they're still selling National Treasure merch, even though that movie's almost 20 years old. But it's like, hey, National Treasure's cool, y'all. It's like, I'm down for it. And like, yeah, I mean, who hasn't seen that movie and uttered that quote? And of course, when I went there and I saw, the actual, Declaration of Independence, I said the line itself, very quietly, of course, because again, there's security around, but I had to be like Nicolas Cage a little bit there too. And so yeah, going to Washington D.C. was tremendous. I mean, everything from just riding the trains to eating the food to talking to people who again were so nice and so friendly. It was really great. And then of course, just walking the streets, literally walking because Washington D.C. is a very walkable city. Of course, you could pay $20 for an Uber to travel, a half mile. But why do that when you could just walk? Why, just have that time to yourself. And I did that. And it really, again, it just made me think. And it was cool to think about all the movies that, of course, have been filmed there as well. But, more importantly, it made me think about what it meant to be a citizen. And, I really enjoyed my time there. And I want to go back to Washington, D.C. at some point. And if you're someone who's listening who is an American and, you're thinking about maybe going there, I hope that this has persuaded you to go there. And I think that, again, this is a must visit location for a sense of patriotism, for a sense of understanding, and for getting a greater sense of how our political system works. Um, I really found it to be incredibly informative. And so, yeah, Washington, D.C., going there was incredible. I'd love to go back there again at some point, and getting to see the twins was fun as well. Go Twinkies. And yeah, just really, really cool place. I hope everyone gets a chance to go there at some point. All right, kids, that is where my traveling, my journey ends after seeing, or well, frankly, after fishing and then seeing Katy Perry and then going to DC. I return back home just to my daily life of, this and that and the other thing. But while I was flying and since I've returned home, I've finished many books. I want to tell y'all about them. And one of the books that I coincidentally listened to a little bit while I was in DC and finished it on the flight back to North Dakota was Bill Maher's What This Comedian Said Will Shock You, which is a great title because Bill Maher is a comedian and what he said in the book did shock me on several occasions. And I absolutely loved this book. And I mean this genuinely. I was frankly sad it was over. When I finished it, I was like, dang, I wish it would just keep going on and on and on because I found it to be so informative and dense and funny and jaw-dropping and insightful. It was really really great. And if you're a fan of Bill Maher And if you like watching his show real time, you're gonna love this book absolutely 100% because he reads the audiobook, and so I listened to this via an audiobook, and so it was just like listening to him on TV. I mean, it was that, seamless, and so it made a great companion piece for his other stuff. And he doesn't pull any punches, which is kind of his thing. That's what he's known for. He's known for being bold and brash. But like he talks about in this book, of course, politics, but he's not afraid to criticize both the left and the right. He addresses our school systems, our education systems. He goes in on the world of comedy and showbiz. He also talks very openly about religion and stuff like that. And he says some things in this that made me literally audibly gasp because I'm like, I don't know if I would ever say those kinds of things out loud, and he did, and he put it into an audiobook, meaning there's a record of it forever. So like, holy mackerel. But he's very, very honest and genuine. And look, he has some opinions on things that I don't agree with. As I've said from the inception of this show, I'm a Christian and I'm a conservative as well. Two things he is not. So he will go in on religion, which, I'm not a fan of. He'll also, take the conservative side of things to task, in my opinion, more than he does, the left and the Democrats and whatnot. But he very much swings a heavy hammer onto several topics and objects. And so, you know, excuse me, no stone is left unturned when it comes to this book. And yeah, look, I'm a big fan of Bill Maher. I became a fan of his probably in the last year, I'd say, is when I've started listening and watching him pretty regularly. And look, in today's political climate, I feel that you have to have a wide bevy of opinions. You have to have both sides. If you only get one side of the equation, you're going to end up living in an echo chamber, which is frankly what I did. Because as I've said, previously on the podcast, like there were times throughout college where I was just listening to Christian. I was just listening to conservative radio and Christian music as well, and whatnot. And then I realized I gotta get out of that camp. I gotta hear the other side of the equation. And so Bill Maher is by no means a straight leftist, and whatnot. But he's I'd say he's more middle, though he leans more to the left. And so he expanded my horizons on many things, and he made me think about things differently and opened me up to more resources that can influence my own line of thinking. And this book was just an extension of that. And again, if you're a fan of his, this is going to be so easy. I mean, it's literally like putting salt on your food. I mean, it's that easy. If you like him, you're going to want to get this book immediately. If you don't like him, I still think you should listen to this because I think you'll come away with a better understanding of him, his personal views, and I think you might be a fan of his by the time you finish this book. And yeah, for being a book about politics, I mean, it's about other things too, but it kind of essentially is about, you know, how the world operates. For being a book about that, it's incredibly entertaining. It's not boring. It still has teeth. And yeah, I think I'm gonna reread it, in time. I think maybe next year I'll pick it back up again because again, I mean this sincerely. I'm sad that it ended, and I really enjoyed it. And again, the biggest glowing review that I could give, this book, if this was the elevator pitch as to why you should read this, it literally made me think differently, and it expanded my my uh, my knowledge on certain topics. It made me learn more. And I mean, what more can you say about a good book? And so, yeah, what this comedian said will shock you. It's not just a good book, it is a great book. And I really enjoyed it, and I think you should check it out. Another book I finished recently is a Halo novel titled Halo Glasslands, and this is by Karen Travis. And I thought this book was amazing. If you've listened to the podcast recently, you'll know that I'm a huge Halo fan. Star Wars is to movies for me what Halo is to video games. Like, those are my two premier sci-fi universes that I dive in on. And yeah, I love Halo so much so that I've played the game several times through each one. And now I'm reading the books. And despite me being a huge Halo fan, that doesn't mean I love everything that they've done. There have been some games that I find frustrating, and also some of their books that I find frustrating as well. And not really frustrating, but there some just hit harder than others, I'd say. And like I read Halo Contact Harvest, really enjoyed that one. Didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. And then I read the Cole Protocol. Again, enjoyed it, but just a bit less than the previous one. And now this one, the next one I've read, Halo Glasslands. This one grew on me as I was reading it, and I really enjoyed this. I'll go so far as to say that this is a great book, and I'll go even further than that, and I'll say that not only is this a great book and just a great Halo book, it's also just flat out a great sci-fi story, period. And one knock that I gave the previous Halo books that I've read and reviewed on this podcast is that I feel that while they're great pieces to the Halo universe, I fear that they have kind of a high bar of entry. I think that you need to be a Halo fan to really get them. This is a book, and people might disagree with this, but this is a book to where I think you could read this if you're unfamiliar with Halo at all, because I think it stands on its own. It's just a great piece of sci-fi literature, which I know some people might take issue with because this book is set between two video games. It's set between Halos 3 and 4. And so really to get, the full meal with this, you should at least play Halo 3 and have maybe a tertiary understanding of Halo 4. But I truly do think you could go into the Halo universe blind and just read this and enjoy it. Of course, there are some things that are mentioned from previous stories and previous novels that might go over your head, but I mean, like, they were referencing books that I've read. Like one book they referenced in this book several times was stuff that took place from a previous novel called Ghosts of Onyx. I read that book. I enjoyed that book. It's on my shelf. I do not remember it very fondly. Like I don't have a steep knowledge of it. And so when they were referencing bits from that story, I was like, "Oh, wait, what is that? What happened? Where was that character last?" There were points to where I had to kind of like stop and like think. But even after I got past those minor, potholes, not plot holes, just potholes, as I kept thinking about Glasslands, I was like, look, like I don't have full context for everything, but this story is really good. The world is really good. The writing is really good. And again, I think it just exists as a great piece of sci-fi storytelling that's wrapped up in this beautiful ribbon that is the Halo universe. And so yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the characters were great. I thought the setting was great. I thought that the showing it shows you both sides of the conflict of the war. So you have the humanity side of things that you, of course, you play as, and you fight the aliens known as the Covenant. That's your primary antagonist in the game. And much like other Halo novels, this book will show you both sides of it. So you have bits from the human perspective, from the hero's perspective. Then you have the other side of the coin as well, and you'll get to see things from the alien's perspective, from the enemy's perspective. And I thought both sides of the storytelling were just as enticing as the other. And I found it to be really, really cool. And yeah, it made me want to play the games. It made me want to read more books. It made me want to dive deeper into the Halo universe than I already am. And so, I mean, again, I think that this book is a great companion piece to the franchise, to the series, and to the other books that surround it. But again, I mean this sincerely. I think that there is a lot of great writing in this that really does exist just on its own as a great book. I think that there are great sci-fi threads that they pull on that can be found to be genuinely interesting for anyone if you're a fan of sci-fi. And while I do recommend that you be a Halo fan to have a deeper understanding of things and a deeper appreciation for things as well, I think that this book really is just a great piece of literature, and I think that if you're looking for a good story, you should check it out. All right, kids, the next book I finished reading is The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks, and I'll just say this: the movie is better than the book. And I actually got introduced to the story of The Notebook via the movie first. I watched the movie for Ryan Gosling because I love the Gosling. In fact, I literally am Ryan Gosling now that I think about it. But yeah, I watched The Notebook, and that movie is tremendous. I had physical reactions to that movie. I got glassy eyed. I had to pause it and walk around for a bit. I mean, it's a good piece of cinema. Like it just is. And so I was really excited to get a hold of the source material, to check it out and to dive into the book because oftentimes, when doing book to film adaptations, there's going to be differences in the story. And so I was looking forward to finding out those differences and to frankly getting a different perspective on the story. And I'll say this, the perspective that I did get via the book form of the Notebook, I did not care for. I think the movie's better than the book, and I think that the Notebook as a novel is actually not that good. Now, I mean, don't throw stones in a glass house. Like, look, Nicholas Sparks is incredibly successful. There's a reason his book got made into a movie in the first place. Clearly, people enjoy this material. Okay, like that's just a fact. But for myself, again, having seen one interpretation of it and then now seeing the other interpretation, the original version of it, I don't like it. I think the way it's told in terms of literal order of events and plot. It doesn't follow the same chronological order, so I did not care for that. I think that the movie actually expands on things better than the book does. I think some things are left pretty shallow. The Notebook is a pretty short read, which I appreciate, but I actually think that there should have been more explained for certain areas and certain characters, mindsets and why they go into certain decision making, areas and stuff like that. So yeah, it's interesting, and I think that there's more emotion in the movie than in the book. Now, that might sound incredibly heavy-handed because in the movie you have sets and actors and music and colors, whereas, with a book, it's literally just words on a page. But again, I'm using the movie as my point of reference in the sense that as I'm reading the book, when I read about Noah, I'm reading it, I have Ryan Gosling in mind. When I'm reading about Allie, I have Rachel McAdams in mind. When they talk about the house, I can picture the house that was used. And it's like it I the didn't like how the book felt like there was a lack of portrayal in some of these aspects. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but I guess really, in terms of an explanation, less is more. I just think that the book itself didn't do a good enough job explaining certain aspects of the overall story, and the movie did. And so yeah, this is one of those instances where I think the movie's better than the book for several reasons, and I think that the movie ultimately tells the story of the Notebook better than the actual book does itself. And yeah, so I mean, again, if you're interested in watching the movie, please do. I think it's really great. If you're interested in reading the book, yeah, go ahead. But like, I can't recommend this one like I have other novels. But hey, Mr. Sparks, if you're listening to the podcast, and I know that you are, if you want to come on and have a nice, lively discussion about the movie and the book, well, you're welcome anytime. So yeah, just reach on out. All right, kids, the next book I finished reading recently was Heat 2. And you might be thinking, what the heck is a Heat 2? And well, kids, Heat 2 is a follow up to Michael Mann's 1995 film Heat. Yes, kids, there is a sequel, there is a story continuation of the movie that stars Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Val Kilmer. May he rest in peace. And look, I love Heat. It's one of my favorite films of all time, and it is my favorite crime drama film in existence. I think Michael Mann is a mastermind when it comes to filmmaking. Movies like, of course, Heat, Collateral. Um, recently he did Ferrari, which I didn't love, but I still really liked, and he did, The Last of the Mohicans. I mean, he is an incredible filmmaker. And I don't know where this idea came from for Heat 2, because the film itself is, wow, and I just realized this, in 2025, it's the 30th anniversary. That's crazy. So, Yeah, the story itself is 30 years old, yet this book was published in 2022. So it's been over 20 years since the original story concluded. And I don't know, if he always had this in mind. I don't know if he's always wanted to do a sequel. I feel like if he would have just frankly done it, sometime after 95 and in between now. I feel like he could have got one made, earlier. And I don't know if this is an entirely new idea for him either. I don't know if he got up one day and was like, I'm going to continue the story. And I don't mean to make light of that. I mean, if that's how he came to this, then, God bless him. It's not like he needed this incredible decade-spanning plan. But frankly, this book does seem kind of random because the film itself, spoilers for the movie, but it frankly kind of wraps up, and there aren't many loose threads to pull on, for a continuation. There is a loose thread, and I use air quotes on loose because, again, spoilers, but in the movie, Val Kilmer, who's one of the bank robbers, he's one of the lone survivors, if not the lone survivor of his crew. And he gets away and he drives off into the night. But that never felt like a cliffhanger to me. That felt like a very poetic kind of ending because the majority of his crew, again, if not all of them, I can't fully remember, they die. They're outright killed. He might be the lone survivor, and in him being the lone survivor, you know, it's not like he got away scot-free. Again, all his friends are dead. His crew's gone. He doesn't get to rekindle with his wife or his kid. They go into witness protection, and so he drives away. He has to just escape with his life. That's all he has. Okay, well, what is his life now? There's nothing. It's in shambles, and so I never thought like I need to know what happens next. I honestly just thought that was kind of his conclusion, that his penance for breaking the law, was the fact that he was going to now live this life of isolation. But again, Michael Mann decided I'm going to pull on that thread. And so with Heat 2, it acts as both a prequel and a sequel to the 1995 film. A prequel in the sense that you get to see what the crew was doing prior to the events of the movie, and then a sequel in the sense that you get to see the direct continuation of Val Kilmer's character after the events of the film. And that's really great. And this book really, really is great overall as well because you get right back into the mindset of the characters. And of course, if you're familiar with the film, you have points of reference for how they're described in terms of appearance, what they do, how they sound, um, the voice. The reader for the audiobook, he did a really tremendous job. Forgive me as his name escapes me, but his literal tone of voice, which sounds very gravelly, very serious, really lends itself to this material. So you really feel like you're enveloped in the world of LA and abroad because this is a globe-trotting adventure, not like a James Bond or like a spy movie, like that. But I mean, and spoiler for the book now, but like Val Kilmer's character, he gets out of the country completely. He's on the other side of the planet, and so you're getting an entirely different locale for him. Then, of course, you're going back to more terrestrial stuff, like you explore LA, Chicago, and so on and so forth. And so, but look, um, I really enjoyed this book. Again, for someone like myself who really loves Heat, just getting to have additional material with these characters, that's already enough. But I'm so happy to say that the story that the book tells is great. And there's been talk that Michael Mann plans to adapt this into an actual feature film, which may or may not star Adam Driver and Austin Butler. That's at least the rumors online. But look, that's of course what people think of when you say there's a sequel to Heat. They go, "Oh, great, let's watch it." Well, actually, you have to read it, or you can listen to it. They might go like, "What?" Yeah, it's a book. So naturally, people are going to think a sequel exists in a movie, and naturally, people are going to think also, "Oh, there's a book. Well, when's it going to be turned into a movie?" And so I guess there's a plan for that. If he does turn it into a film, I have no doubt it's going to be tremendous because the book is great. He has the source material. This exists as a great container for the story. He just has to convert it into a good script, which all the material is right there. I mean, this thing is stuffed to the brim with goodness. So I think it'll be great, and I think it will make for a really good adaptation because, as I said, there's great character development, there's good action, and it really is just interesting overall. And if you're someone who's into crime dramas like myself, um, when when the authors, Mann and Gardner, when they get into the granular minutia of how to describe the lead up to a robbery or the actual robbery itself, there is something different about hearing about it versus watching it, in action, and so that's really great as well. And yeah, I found this thing to be a really good read, really strong read. I'm really sad that it's over because I just wanted to keep going. There's great subplots and stuff like that. I believe there's also a shout out to North Dakota in the book too, if I remember correctly. So, shout out to the Midwest. But yeah, look, Heat 2 is great, and Heat's amazing too. If you have not seen the film, please watch it. And if you're thinking about checking out the book, I highly recommend that you do. And I do recommend that you go for the audiobook route. Of course, the best way to consume a book is perhaps always on the printed page, so you can definitely go that route too. But if you are gonna check out Heat 2, like do a refresher on the film and then immediately dive into the book. It's gonna just enhance it more for you. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to the future of what Heat 2 can bring. I think it's really great as a book, and hopefully we'll get to see it turn into a film one day. But yeah, Michael Mann is just cranking out material, and we should all be so lucky. So yeah, check out Heat and Heat 2. All right, kids, we are now going to leave the world of books behind and enter the world of music, as I want to talk about my favorite band in the whole wide world, that being 21 Pilots. Yes, kids, I'm a huge Pilots fan. I remember where I was when I first discovered this band. It was in 2014 in Minnesota, and my cousin Ryan, shout out Ryan, he randomly played their song Holding On to You off their album Vessel, and my life was just changed in that moment. This was the first band that I ever really dove deep on. Like, I mean, really, really went in on. I watched all their music videos, which weren't many at the time, but I consumed music videos, lyric videos, live performance videos, and I just dove in. And then Vessel was the first album that I ever listened to front to back without stopping. It's the first one I ever got fully, completely on digital, on CD, and I have it on vinyl too. It's the first album that I've liked every track on. I mean, it's just my favorite album, just in existence of music. And that same year in 2014 was the first time I got to see them live. That was on the Quiet is Violent World Tour that was also in Minnesota, and that began the tradition of my mother and I going to see them almost every year, if not quite literally every year. My mom and I just became huge Pilots fans, and we dove into their music together. We've gone to every show together. We've seen them now either 7 or 8 times live. I mean, but we've seen them from the Vessel era, Blurryface era, Trench era, Scaled and Icy era, Clancy. We've seen them all. All these different iterations of the band. We have not missed a show, and it's been just tremendous to just have them as a constant in my life and in her life as well. It's just something that we can bond over, and we've got shirts and all the merch, and we watch their live streams. We're just huge Pilot fanatics, and this year in 2025 marks the 10th anniversary of their second album, titled Blurry Face. And it's crazy to think that that album is now 10 years old, because I remember when they started working on this record. I remember when they did the slow release and they were just drip feeding, content and music videos and all that stuff. And I remember their first track that they released was fairly local, and I did not like the track at first, and now it's probably my favorite on the record. It grew on me immensely, and the whole album grew immensely throughout the entirety of the world because that's the record that really got them into the mainstream, atmosphere. That's what got them on the radio, It's what got them billions of plays on YouTube and Spotify. It's what got them Grammy nominated because their song "Stressed Out" just blew up, and they won that Grammy too. Now that I think about it, but yeah, Blurry Face brought with it "Stressed Out" and "Ride," the two songs that just held uh, pilots to a whole nother dimension. And so, yeah, it's crazy. I remember them when they were small, back when they were just a little old band. But yeah, I saw them on the Quiet is Violent tour, the Blurry Face tour, that very first tour in 2015. Like I still have, videos and photos of that concert on my phone, and I will be intersecting them into this podcast recording now because getting to see those videos, which are over 10 years old, it's crazy. I mean, this was right before they exploded, so this was a small venue and now they're playing arenas, and all this stuff. It's crazy. But yeah, my mom and I, we've been on every tour together, and we've loved all their albums, all their songs. And there's just something different about this band from traditional music. And I know that people say that for whoever their favorite artist is. If someone loves Taylor Swift, oh, she's different. If someone likes a rapper, he's different. So it's cliche, but I mean it genuinely. I do feel that 21 Pilots is different. I think that their creativity is infectious, and they have a certain way of doing things that just make them seem so genuine themselves. From how they interact with fans to how they literally don't swear in their music, to how they try to tell stories alongside their music, and also how incredibly raw and emotional it is because they wear their hearts on their sleeves, and they're not afraid to talk about suicide, either directly or in a metaphorical type of way, or dealing with abuse, or being insecure, or dealing with anxiety. I mean, they really get down to business. And so, me as a teenager, when all those things are kind of coming to a head in my life, I mean, I found them at just the perfect time, and they were such an outlet for me, such a specific way for me to express myself, and for fans around the world too. And like, I was a percussionist growing up, and their drummer Josh Dunn, he really got me into wanting to learn the drums and to try to do it more, and to just they just made me pursue music in ways that frankly went beyond listening, in my opinion. And I remember when my mother and I saw them live for the second time on the Blurry Face tour. Again, that show was much smaller and it was much more intimate. We were physically very close to everyone and to the actual band itself. And I remember at the end when they're doing their goodbyes and they're waving and everything, Josh Dunn, the drummer, he looked right at me, and he pointed it at me with his drumstick. He recognized me. He saw me waving my arms, and I remember when that moment happened, I burst into tears. Like I cried profusely, and there's no video of it. There's no pictures of it because that was a time when I did not have my phone out, and I took a lot of videos of the first two concerts because that's what you do when you're a teenager. You photograph everything. But for that moment, for the end there, I put my phone away, and so it was just me and him. And I can see it in my mind's eye right now, him turning and looking at me. And when he pointed, it made me feel like I was the only person in that room for those few seconds. And I get chills just thinking about it right now. And yeah, look, Blurry Face is a really special record because again, it follows up Vessel, which I think is my favorite, record in existence, like I said. And then Blurry Face grew on me steadily, and they really went into a cool era of their band with this, with different sounds, more kind of electronic stuff, and more poppy stuff. And then also their color scheme for this as well, I think is really cool. They went with red and black and white, and I mean, their merch is just awesome, and yeah, with 21 Pilots, like everything they've done since then, I eat up with a spoon. Then of course they follow it up with Trench and Scaled and Icy, and then Clancy, most recently, and now, kids, they've announced yet another album coming just a year after their latest release, which again was Clancy. They've announced their latest album titled Breach, and this really does feel like a part two to Clancy, with not only, just the literal time frame and how it's coming out. Because normally it's at least 2 to 3 years in between albums. This one's just over a year, but just how they've talked about it and how and the color scheme that they're implementing with this again, leaning heavily back into the reds and the blacks and the whites. That's what they did with Blurryface and with Clancy and now with Breach. They're not slowing down at all. If anything, they're just switching gears. And so they've announced yet another album titled Breach coming out later this year. They've announced a tour, which my mom and I are gonna try to hit hopefully at some point. We'll see what happens. And then they've released a single titled "The Contract" alongside with a new music video. I've listened to that song. I have not watched the video yet at the time of this recording. I don't really like the song. That's the problem though, is that like I like the song, but it's gonna have to grow on me, which is fine because that's what their other albums did too. Like Blurryface, fairly local. First track, liked it, did not love it. Now I love it. So on with Trench. Jumpsuit, liked it more, but I don't think I was immediately like, oh yeah, like, let's go. Actually, Jumpsuit might have been more of an outlier. I think I did get into that one pretty heavily from the jump. Shy Away off of Scale and Icy took a little bit of getting used to, as did Overcompensate from Clancy. And so for me, not immediately loving the contract off of Breach, that for me is not like this guy is falling. That's like, hey, that's par for the course. But yeah, I love this band. I love 21 Pilots, and I love the fact that this is something that my mom and I have done together for literally 10 years now is experience their music. And fathers and sons, they play catch. Mothers and daughters, they, whatever. They try on, dresses and do their hair and whatnot. And then for my dad and I now, our thing together is we enjoy fishing and watching football together. And for my mom and I, we go to the movies together and we listen to 21 Pilots together. And I'm really thankful for this band and what they've given me as an individual, and also what they've given just music, in general. I do wish there is a part of me that very selfishly wishes that the band could have stayed small, that they could have just been a little more niche, because I liked that. Because again, I knew them before they were big, but now they're a huge superstar and whatnot. But it's just good to have them still around, and I'm looking forward to the new album. I'm looking forward to Breach. But yeah, just the fact that Blurryface is 10 years old now is crazy. And I still remember that concert, like I mentioned. I remember all the concerts, but like there was something about those first couple of shows to where they were still small, and then they quickly follow it up with the Emotional Roadshow tour, and that's where they got into more arena based things, and you could literally see in real time they're going from 500 person rooms to 5,000, now to 50,000, and yeah, it's been crazy. And yeah, when I heard that the album was turning 10 this year, I was like, I was beside myself, because it doesn't seem like it's been 10 years, but that makes sense. Um, yeah, everyone loves Stressed Out. Like I said myself, I think my favorite track might be fairly local. If not that one, then Hometown I think is great as well. Yeah, there's many great tracks. I could talk endlessly about 21 Pilots. I think that they're really just tremendous. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to their future. Like I said, Breach is coming. I like the album cover. I don't love it because like previously they went on kind of a cool streak of having literal art in their album covers. Blurryface had a cool cover. Scaled and Icy had a cool cover with its art as well, as did Trench. And then now they're getting back to more, literal photography. Clancy was a picture of the two members. Now Breaches too. So small stuff like that. But no, I really love 21 Pilots, and I'm pretty thankful again for them. And I just hope that you know there's more to come after this. I hope that they never stop. I hope that they keep making music forever and ever. And yeah, it's crazy the fact that Blurryface is 10, and now Clancy's 1, Breach is coming, another tour, more music, more videos. more merch. I mean, they're gonna get me by the wallet. They've already had me by the wallet for years, but they're just coming back for another bite at the apple. So yeah, 21 Pilots is just what a great band, and I love them so much. And again, I love that they've given my mother and I something to just bond with over this last decade plus. So yeah, just thanks, pilots, and keep on keeping on. If you're listening to the Far Out podcast, and I know that you are, you're welcome to come on anytime you like. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you at the next concert for the Breach era of the band.
Temperatures drop. I'm not sure if I. It's too quiet. Your shit.
All right, kids, we are now going to step away from the world of music and enter the world of TV because I have been watching more of the studio lately. I'm very behind on the episodes. They're all out and I'm still working through them, but I just watched episode 5. This one's titled The War, and this is yet another good episode from the series. Again, if you're really into film production and the world of entertainment and actually how things get done and get made and what goes on behind closed doors with movie sets and deals and so on and so forth, you should be watching this series. It's really incredible. This one has to do with rivalries inside of the studio, producers and creative heads clashing together, trying to get one up on another so that way they can get the credit for putting certain directors on certain projects and shepherding those projects then towards a finish line. It's really crazy. And Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, they've said repeatedly that in the production of this series, they strive to be accurate to how Hollywood actually goes about making entertainment. And so, do I think that some of the more zany and wacky elements in the series are truthful? No, probably not. But do I think that there's absolutely been feuds, in halls and such that have ended in fights and arguments and even fist fights and like backstabbing and, blackmailing, all that stuff? 100%. 100%. So yeah, the representation of the creative culture inside Hollywood, I think, is on full display here with the studio, and the fact that it's not done as a straight drama, but it's instead done as a comedy, I think makes it all the better. And I've been really enjoying it, and I'm gonna look forward to continuing on with the series. It's already been picked up for a second season, which is great. I'm really glad that it's getting the audience that it deserves. I think this is one of the better things on TV. And this is also made via Apple, and they've been killing it lately with their TV and movies. So, yeah, this is another good thing that you should be watching. And again, the intricacies of the studio, getting to see how this stuff actually gets made, all the stuff that we consume in theaters and on our phones and our laptops, like getting a peek behind that curtain is really cool. And yeah, this episode I just watched, titled "The War," has to do with egos going head to head, and it made for some pretty entertaining television. So yeah, I recommend you check it out. All right, kids, we are now going to shift into the world of video games because, as we know, GTA 6 is on the horizon, even though it's been delayed now. Funny enough, the last time I talked about GTA on this podcast had to do with the delay. That's what I was talking about. And then shortly after that, a second trailer for the game was dropped, perhaps to quell any frustrations with the game being delayed. But I did not get a chance to talk about that trailer as it was coming out on the podcast, and so I thought we would take a look at that now. Then I also thought that, well, if we're looking at the second trailer, why not look at the first one to kind of get a better understanding of what GTA 6 might be like? And look, like, I'm excited for GTA 6, like I am. But like when that delay got announced, I wasn't surprised, nor was I mad, because like as I've said before, like Grand Theft Auto is one of the biggest gaming franchises ever. It's one of the biggest entertainment things ever. Just period, full stop. And so for me, having been fully satisfied with GTA 5, the idea of another installment in this series has always seemed more of like an idea than an actual thing. Like GTA 5 is over 10 years old now, and people have gotten sick of it, they've gotten tired of it, but it's still one of the most popular games on the market. It still brings people back month after month, year after year, myself included. I will go months, if not years, without touching it, and then I'll see something on Twitter about it, and I'm like, why not? Why not dive back in? Like, GTA 5 is such a complete package for me that, like, I honestly don't think GTA 6 is, like, really needed. Now, of course, I'll take it, and I'm gonna buy the game when it comes out, but, like, if GTA 5 was the last game we ever got in the series, I'd be cool with it. And the idea of a GTA 6 coming, with it being so massive and so highly anticipated as it is, I just frankly don't think people have really grasped that it's like a real thing. I think we're all kind of blinded by our excitement by it. And so like for me, like when the delay got announced, I was like, oh, okay. Like I waited over 10 years for the possibility of a new game. Now I have to wait even longer, a couple more months, maybe even a year. Okay, sounds good. By the way, I think Red Dead Redemption 2 was delayed 3 times before it finally released. So I'm just saying, if GTA 6 gets delayed again, I won't cry one bit about it. But yeah, speaking of, GTA 6, there have been two trailers now released. One of them, that I just rewatched right before this recording, is really more of an introduction just to the game. It's more of an announcement trailer than anything else. There's not much in terms of plot, story, what you can do, what you can't do. It's really just an overview and a presentation of the world, hence why there's a lot of landscape shots and a lot of establishing shots. And of course, it shows us the bread and butter of GTA, going crazy in a cool environment, driving fast cars, committing crimes, being crazy, flying planes, yada yada. And I don't know a lot of details around this game. Like I don't know the full context for this story, but from what I get, it sounds like it's gonna have to deal with at least two uh, robbers, a guy and a girl this time around, and it's set in a fictional representation of Florida or perhaps Miami, though I imagine it kind of expands beyond just Miami and goes into more of a large scale thing, like maybe the entirety of Florida, who knows. But visually, it looks marvelous. This first trailer. I mean, this looks like it's going to be one of the more high fidelity games like in existence, just period. Like they're gonna spare no expense on this, and I'm sure that they haven't. Like I'm sure that this thing literally has billions, billions with an illion dollars into its production, marketing, so on and so forth. I mean, like, people were saying like, if I can't go inside every building in GTA 6, I'm gonna lose it. Well, like, who knows? Like, I don't know if that's gonna happen, but like, it looks like we're just gonna be feasting on this thing for the next 2 decades, like minimum. And then we go over to trailer number 2 here, and it looks like the graphics have already seen improvements. Like, there's already more detail on people and on like certain locations and certain objects. I mean, there are some of these shots from both of these trailers, but especially the second one, that frankly just look photo real to the point to where it's like, if you showed me some of these screenshots like in isolation, I don't know if I could tell this is a rendering or not. Like there are some shots in here where it's like it's really blurring the lines between fiction and reality almost too much. And like nowadays we live in a world where anyone can make anything via AI, and we're constantly getting fooled by that, myself included. I oftentimes will see something on the internet or on Twitter, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's got to be real, right?" Nope, turns out it's AI. So like, I'm not saying that Rockstar is using AI for their stuff. I don't think they would do that. I'm sure they like to hold on to their artistic integrity as much as possible. But like, if they're doing this stuff without AI, without whatever tools that they have, I mean, my gosh, because again, the renderings on this stuff, the shadows, the animations, it's pretty freaking crazy. And of course, it looks like it's going to be a crazy fun time with wacky characters and cool, things you can do all day long, because like, who doesn't love Grand Theft Auto? You just get in a car, you drive down the streets, you race, you rob a couple of banks, and then you go buy a sports car and, get a nice, luxurious apartment and repeat. You do it day in, day out. And yeah, GTA 6 looks like it's just setting the table for us yet again to do all that fun stuff. And I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's going to be crazy when it finally comes out, if and when that is. I'm still not convinced it's going to hit its new release date for like 2026. I wouldn't be surprised if it got delayed into 2027, if I'm being honest. Like that wouldn't surprise me one iota. So yeah, look, GTA 6 has two amazing trailers out, and both of them just give us a visual marvel to just gawk at. But like, I don't know, like, it almost seems too big. It almost seems like it's gonna be like just too ambitious. Not in the sense that I'll be like disappointed, but it's almost like it almost feels daunting to think like we're going to be able to play this one day. It says May 2026 at the end of the trailer, but like I might need more time to mentally prepare. Like that means we're now less than a year away, which is crazy. Like I can't imagine playing another GTA game. Like it's too much, man. It's too much. But yeah, look, both trailers are great. If you haven't seen them, go watch them. And if you have checked them out, like go back and rewatch them because they're pretty awesome. But yeah, GTA 6 is coming, but who knows when. But it can take all the time it needs. I will happily be here when it comes out. But yeah, like I don't think we're ready. I'm not ready. Are you ready? Comment down below and let me know what you're thinking. Anyway, moving on, but keeping with video games, we previously talked about Halo as a book series, so why not talk about it as a video game series? And I'm, of course, talking about Halo Infinite, and they've done a lot of cool updates with the game recently. Last time, well, prior to this last update, they did this cool thing with their firefight game mode, which included these new maps and modes that really felt kind of like a quasi campaign. Like instead of it just being, random bang bang pew pew, ground pound, shoot 'em up, kind of a zombie style Call of Duty mode, they tried to channel more of a narrative arc into the game mode to where like you're moving throughout a map and there's certain areas you have to get to by like interacting with the map. Like you have to hold down a door until a ship arrives. You have to bust through a door to get to a new location. You have to try to save people along the way. Like they're trying to make the game more intricate through this firefight mode, which I really appreciate because like to me the best part about Halo is its storytelling capabilities, whether that's through the campaigns, the novels, so on and so forth. And now they're kind of trickling that down into the actual multiplayer itself. There's been kind of a multiplayer thing going on for a couple of years now, but like this was kind of their latest attempt with that, and I really enjoyed it. But now, at the time of this recording, their latest update just launched, which brings back a lot of cool things from the Halo universe. One of them being the game mode Griffball, which is like Halo's version of like soccer or football. It's a lot of fun. But also, they brought back with it a throwback playlist that pulls the game back to kind of something like Halo 3. You strip down a lot of the abilities from the game. There's no sprint. You can't clamber. The game Halo Infinite, the latest entry in the series through this new game mode, plays more like the Halos of old. It's called Legacy Arena or Legacy Slayer or Halo 3 Arena Slayer, whatever they're calling it. But anyway, I think it feels freaking phenomenal. I think this is how Halo is meant to be played. Nowadays, every shooter game, you can run, jump, climb, swim, hurdle, jetpack, grapple hook, you name it. But back, in my day, Halo was built on just this perfect triangle of gameplay. You could jump, you could shoot, and you could throw grenades. That was it. That was it. It was simple. Anyone could pick it up. Hence why at the age of 7, I was able to pick it up. If you would have given me modern Halo and said go nuts, I would have been like, uh, excuse me. Now, of course, there's, these kids who play Fortnite and, everything else nonstop and they can do these insane trick shots, because I'm an old guy, nowadays, and you got these kids who are just going off the handle like you wouldn't believe. But my point remains the same is that Halo used to have incredibly simple gameplay, and with each installment, while there were things that I liked about the upgrades to the system, some of the upgrades, air quote upgrades, were kind of just glossy downgrades. They made the game too complicated, too muddled, and so on and so forth. And this latest update, again, this Legacy Slayer or Arena update, brings back to what is considered to be the best of the franchise, which is Halo 3's gunplay and movement and so on. Halo Reach is my favorite Halo. However, the original formula really did exist inside of the original trilogy, being Halos 1, 2, and 3, and then Reach expanded upon it and kind of brought the game series to its threshold, in my opinion, of all this extra stuff, all this extra frosting on this already delicious cake. So in this new game mode, they've pulled it back to Halo 3, back to 2007. I think it's incredible. I think this is how Halo should be played. Without the crazy abilities, without sprint, without clamber. It's just you spawn in, you got your muzzle up, you're aiming down the sights, boom. Hit your shots or don't. Like this is how Halo should be played. I know I've already said that, but it's like it feels so good. I can go in match after match and not freak out or feel like I have to try hard or anything like that. And map rotation is paramount to knowing which angles to hit and can I make this jump? Can I not? Like knowing weapon spawns is crucial too. And yeah, Halo Infinite, its vanilla presentation, it does get that, but not quite. Like it gets close, but not really. Halo Infinite really does try to find the middle ground between the classic, more rudimentary Halo and the new stuff that's crazy and bouncing off the walls. Halo Infinite does strike a very steady ground between the two of them. However, in my opinion, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so if you have to keep improving the formula, look at Halo Reach and then just stop there. But if you want to take it just a notch, just a hair down Halo Reach, Halo 3 is that sweet spot. And yes, there is now a Halo 3 playlist in Halo Infinite. It plays great. It's fun. The maps are great. It looks great. Again, I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've even said it thrice, but this really does feel like Halo. This is how Halo is meant to be played. And yeah, the Legacy Slayer playlist in Halo Infinite is live. I hope that when this update ends and they rotate it out for something new, because that's what they do now, is that these things exist for like a month, and then they kind of get folded into the game. I hope it does. I honestly I don't know if it will because it is kind of expansive. Like there's many uh, subsections of the mode itself, and there's a lot of maps. I don't know if they can just all cram it in there into its own folder. I hope they can because I would like to play this until like the end of time. So yeah, but yeah, look, the arena or the Legacy Arena playlist in Halo Infinite is live. It's a lot of fun. Once again, I think this is how Halo is meant to be played, and so I think you should check it out. Anyway, moving on to the world of movies. After my dad and I finished our day of fishing, we decided to watch a movie, and we chose to check out K-19, The Widowmaker. And if you're not familiar with that movie, that's okay, because I wasn't either, but I'm so glad I got to check this one out. This is a submarine movie directed by Catherine Bigelow. And if you're not familiar with that name, you certainly know her work, as she is the director of Point Break, Zero Dark 30, The Hurt Locker, and many others. She's a great filmmaker. She's a good action filmmaker, and she's a good military war filmmaker, and this film is no exception. Of course, when people think of submarine movies, they think of The Hunt for Red October. Rightfully so, that film was incredible. But the K-19 does stand alongside it for a couple of different reasons, because whereas The Hunt for Red October, while also being a Soviet era submarine movie, that one is more of an action set piece. That one is based off a Tom Clancy book, based off the Jack Ryan character. So it's a little more action oriented, whereas K-19, The Widowmaker, is almost an entirely straight character drama because it has to do with a Soviet era submarine, a nuclear one, taking its maiden voyage, and along its maiden voyage, its nuclear reactor fails. And so the thing keeping it alive, giving it its power, is failing, and that causes radiation to leak throughout the entirety of the vessel. And the crew doesn't know what to do. They're underprepared. They never thought this would happen, and they don't know how to react. Do they surface and reveal themselves to try to get more help from the Americans or someone else? But by doing that, they would risk the submarine and the technology falling into the hands of their enemies. And so there's this internal dilemma amongst the crew. Do we sacrifice ourselves and go down with the ship and further protect the motherland that way, or do we try to save our own lives and try to, honor our country by living to fight another day? It's a pretty harrowing movie because as the reactor starts to fail, again, spoilers for everything, but as the reactor starts to fail and they realize they really can't fix it, but they can try to slow it down to come up with a better plan, to come up with a conclusion, what they do is that they send members of their crew, two at a time, in a buddy system, just into the reactor room, trying their best to fix it. They're essentially putting band-aids over a gunshot wound, and they're underprepared. They don't have the right equipment or the right tools, and they go into this reactor and they're trying to fix it the best they can. And while this is happening, their bodies are being destroyed. They're being blasted with radiation. And so the crew realizes, okay, to keep a minimum safe distance, you can only go in there for 3 minutes at a time or something like that. Well, 3 minutes might as well be 3 hours because the crew members go in, they do their thing for 3 minutes, they come out, and they're cooked. They're blind, they're covered in sores and scars, their bodies are falling apart, they're vomiting, they're shaking, they're passing out. I mean, you're seeing people get killed from radiation. And it's really, really harrowing because this is a war movie that the typical adversary of your enemy on the battlefield or in a submarine, with bang bang pew pew and torpedoes firing, that's not here. This is a conflict of like internal judgment and like an enemy you can't stop, but you can only try to be resilient to, which is that radiation. And the set design in this is just incredible. Again, with Catherine Bigelow at the helm here, like I think she did a fantastic job. Again, set design is incredible. The music is great as well. Sound design is great. You really feel like you're inside this metal coffin. And of course, the cast is great too. It's led by Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson, respectively. And I think this film is really great. And look, in a world of war movies, you're going to think of the heavy hitters. You're going to think of Hunt for Red October, Saving Private Ryan, most recently Hacksaw Ridge. This is a film I have never heard of, but I think it deserves to be seen. I think it should be checked out. And yeah, it really did exceed, you know, my expectations. Not in the sense that like I knew what I was getting into, but like when I asked my dad, like, "What is this?" He was like, "It's a submarine movie," and I immediately I thought of, "Okay, Hunt for Red October, let's go." And this one stands shoulder to shoulder with it, in my opinion. So yeah, I think you should check out K-19, The Widowmaker. Anyway, keeping it with movies, we talked previously about how the album Blurry Face celebrated its 10-year anniversary, but a movie also had that same anniversary as well, that being Mad Max Fury Road. And look, what can I say? This film is phenomenal. It's one of the greatest action movies ever made, if not the greatest action movie ever made of all time. It's essentially one big car chase from beginning to end, and it does not disappoint. This, of course, is directed by George Miller, known for making the Mad Max universe, and this stars Tom Hardy as Mad Max and then Charlize Theron as Furiosa, and together that dynamic trio, I mean, they just cranked out a real piece of art. And with it being its 10-year anniversary, there was a re-release of the film back in theaters, and so I had the privilege to see it in a theater with the full surround sound, and it just blew me away. I remember when I first saw the film for the first time back in 2015, and I was just 17 at the time, and like I hadn't fully grasped like what it was. Like I remember liking it, but like I didn't understand the weight of it. Like at the time of it coming out, I just heard it was George Miller coming back to the universe, Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, and that this film was being lauded for its use of practical effects, real explosions, real cars that they actually built, actually driving them through a desert, and like they're doing it for real. That was kind of the big selling ticket of it, was that this is like for real. It's actually happening. And I went, cool. I want to see that. And I went and I did see it, and I remember really liking it, but like it didn't fully, the weight of it did not sit with me until after about my third or fourth viewing, to where I was like, my gosh, everything on screen looks impossible. I don't know how they got the permission to do this, let alone I don't know how it came out to be such a tremendous film. Like none of this should work, and the fact that it does is already a miracle. The fact that it's an incredible end product, I mean, come on, what are we talking about here? So yeah, Mad Max Fury Road is an incredible movie. Of course, we had a follow-up, which is technically a prequel, but it did come after, with 2024's Furiosa, which was a prequel centered around Charlize Theron's character. However, it did not star Charlize Theron in the role. And look, that movie did not do it for me for several reasons. But in hindsight, and after rewatching this film again, it's really hard to follow up Mad Max Fury Road. And like, I probably should do a rewatch of Furiosa at some point, but like, this one's amazing. Like, in a world where like we had Mad Max, like, I wouldn't have blamed anyone for saying, let's just stop right there. Because I mean, it's such a hard act to follow. So, yeah, like, if you have not seen the movie, I really do recommend it. It's one of the greatest films like ever made. And if you're interested in how it did get made or nearly did not get made, I recommend you check out this book called Blood, Sweat, and Chrome, which is a book that catalogs the creation of this movie, and it's really tremendous. I have not finished it yet, but from what I have read of it, it's really quite good. And so yeah, I recommend you check out that book, and I also recommend that you check out Mad Max Fury Road, and you are awaited in Valhalla, shiny and chrome. Anyway, moving on, but keeping it with movies. I'm late to the party on this one, but I finally got a chance to see Marvel's Thunderbolts. And look, I liked it. I didn't love it, but I kind of knew that going in because, like, leading up to this one, I really wasn't too excited for the movie. Like, I have seen some posters and some trailers for it that I thought were good, not great, but it kind of just it didn't hit me like other ones. It's not top shelf Marvel. But look, that's a high bar to clear because like top shelf for them is like Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. Need I go on? So like Thunderbolts already had a high hill to climb and whatnot. Plus, it's coming off of a Captain America movie that not a lot of people loved. I liked Captain America 4, but much like Thunderbolts, I just frankly kind of liked it. I did not love it. But look, like with this one, There are certainly things I enjoyed. I really enjoyed the cast. I thought the ensemble was great. I thought the action was good. And that might honestly be it. Like, there's not a lot to really latch on to for this one. Like, the story's really good and it's really emotional and really character driven, but like, this is such a departure from the standard Marvel fare, which I know is kind of the point of this one, but like, I think it went too far into one direction. Because, like, visually, this movie's much darker than the other ones. There's not a lot of color here. Tonally, very, very dark, very heavy, and the subject matter in question, which has to do with like people's grief and loss and not feeling like they have a place in society or really in life as a whole. That's a really good avenue to go down for storytelling. I'm not sure it really worked its best in the Marvel container, because we're used to, the fun and zany and wacky, roller coaster rides, and you can have, branching genres inside the Marvel movies, because like we have Captain America 2, that's a spy thriller. We have Black Panther, which is about culture. Then you have the team up movies with the Avengers and with Civil War. And even Civil War, has to deal with, you know, differing opinions on policy and what's right and what's wrong and whatnot. So Marvel can have different genres spliced in, but I think that they've really kind of ironed out the whole family focused, brand for them. And this one really isn't a family film. You can also argue that like Deadpool 3 isn't a family film, but even that one's a little more fun and jovial while also being about grief too. This one, Thunderbolts, I think ultimately just lacked joy, which again, with the subject matter is it's hard to interject joy into this one, but like I don't know, it might have been like trying to push, a circle into a square hole type deal. But look, I still like the movie. I still think it did a lot of things right, and I liked where it left off and what it sets up for Marvel going forward. It didn't grab me like other movies, but that's okay. But yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I saw it, and my mom and I had a good time at the movies, and that's all I can ask for. The next movie I saw recently, kids, is a movie that I had frankly forgot was coming out. It's something I had talked about on this podcast, and I said I was excited for it, and then I randomly just checked my local theater times and saw it's available, and I went, let's go. I saw the movie called Dangerous Animals. This is a movie that's pretty quiet on the movie front. It's pretty small, has a pretty small release, but that's okay because the premise alone is what got me interested in this movie in the first place. Very simply, very basically, there's a serial killer who kidnaps his victims, and to kill them, he feeds them to sharks. Boom, I'm there. That's a great premise. Like, that's a great elevator pitch. I'm there. And so I went. I went to a 10:30 showing of Dangerous Animals, and I was disappointed. I'm not going to waste a lot of time on this one here. I'll just give you the cliff notes. It's not a good movie. The script I thought was poor. The logic behind some of the characters' decisions I thought was poor. There's just weird decision making throughout the movie, both from a character perspective and from a creative perspective. And I'm not trying to throw stones. It's not like I'm a filmmaker, so it's very cynical for me to armchair quarterback this. Well, you know, I would have done this. I never would have done that. Like, I've never made a movie. I don't know how hard it is. I like to think I know because I watch things like The Studio and I read books and whatnot on this stuff. But like, I only have, you know, a Windows view into this world. So again, like the fact that any movie gets made is a miracle. And look, if you worked on Dangerous Animals, like God bless you, you got to make some art. But like in my opinion, this wasn't a very good, end product. But yeah, there's some decision making throughout this film that just kind of baffled me. There's clunky dialogue, like cringy stuff as well. And the worst part about this is that like there aren't that many great kills. And what kills there are, what combat there is, the majority of it is between person to person on the boat. There's not a lot of shark action. And again, if you've listened to this podcast before, you know I'm not a scary movie guy. I don't like this stuff. Like for every 50 that come out, I see like two. And this was one of them. Literally, the premise alone got me interested. So, like, good for them for casting a wide net, pun intended. But like, yeah, just I was not impressed by this one. Yeah, a lack of good action, a lack of just in my opinion, overall competence on several levels, and it kind of just left a dull taste in my mouth. I wish there was more there. What I do like about it, what I will give this movie props. There are some things that work about it really well. The set design is great. The design of the ship I think is really cool. The cast is having a good time, and the photography of it, the cinematography of it looks really good. Everything is captured really well. But you know, when you go to the movies, you want the good visuals, but you don't want it just in cool photography. You want it in cool kills, good use of color, a good story. You want to be entertained. And for myself, I was just bored. And at an hour and a half, almost exactly in length, I was checking my watch a few times, and I was like, oh man, like when are we gonna get out of here? That's not good. This movie is short, yet it felt long. And yeah, Dangerous Animals, just it did not do it for me. The poster, funny enough, was better than the actual movie, in my opinion, and that's just too bad. If you're interested in this one, check it out. But man, you just gotta bring your expectations down by like at least 5 notches, or frankly, just leave them at the door, and then go in. Because yeah, this one kind of came and went for me. It'll sleep with the fishes at the end of the day. And the last movie I saw recently, I saw with my mother, and this is Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme. And look, if you know anything about Wes Anderson, you know what you're going to get with one of his movies. You're going to get wacky characters, a wacky plot, funky dialogue, some comedy, great set design, great costumes, a lot of symmetry, immaculate color, so on and so forth. Like, he is an artist's filmmaker. I mean, this guy goes all out. Frankly, I don't know how he gets like the allowance to do this, both from like a green light to also like the budget, because he's never really lit up the box office before. But again, his movies are just a tour de force. Like he leaves nothing behind. He leaves no stone unturned, and like every shot of like you could put on a Wes Anderson movie, press pause at any point throughout it, and you could arguably frame it and hang it on your wall. Like he literally makes art. He makes motion pictures, like literally. So like, not knocking him in any way. However, for me personally, I think he kind of peaked earlier in his career. Like Fantastic Mr. Fox, I think is an incredible film. That thing is beautiful. It's funny. You can watch that with your whole family. That's a crowd pleaser. Since then, I don't think he's made crowd pleasers. And I'm not talking like 100 million, 200 million. I'm just talking like good family movies. Like the last thing I think he made that I thought was genuinely great was The Grand Budapest Hotel. I believe that was 2014. But everything beyond that, though, has either A, not been as family focused, nor has it been to the degree of like the Grand Budapest. Like his last three movies that I can remember are The French Dispatch, which I liked but did not love, Asteroid City, which I liked more than The French Dispatch but did not love, and then now The Phoenician Scheme, which I also liked but did not love. However, I would say that The Phoenician Scheme is just a little below where Asteroid City was for me. So, on average, his batting average is great. Like he's making movies that I like but don't love. But like Mr. Fox I loved. Grand Budapest I loved. Everything else I have not loved. I've just simply liked. And like look, I'm in the bag for him. Like he could announce a movie tomorrow for 2027. I'll see you at the theater in 2027. But like the Phoenician Scheme, I just wanted a little more. Like there are things about this I really liked. Like once again, set design, costuming, dialogue, characters, you name it. The plot in this was just bananas, like so silly it's hard to follow. Also, I thought there could have and should have been more comedy. Michael Cera in this is the best part of the movie because he plays such a great comedic character. I just don't think there was enough comedy. I thought he was a little undercooked in that department. But I digress. Because like I said with Wes Anderson, you know what you're getting. You just do. So I like the Phoenician Scheme. I do, but it just like in my opinion, this is an example of something that's perhaps more style over substance. I think he's going a little too weird and losing a bit of the entertainment value of his movies. This by no means is a bad film. But like even as I'm talking right now, I'm struggling to come like up with like plot details about like how I could break this down for this review. And I just saw the film. Like I feel like I need to read about the movie, then tell you guys how I feel about it, even though I just saw it. Like it literally needs to be layered out. Literally needs to be lined out for me, you know. So like again, it's gorgeous to look at, but in terms of a story and a plot, it left some to be desired. So again, the Phoenician Scheme, good, not great. It's kind of the average for Wes Anderson, but again, I'm all in for him. I will go to his next movie and the next one after that, and I hope he continues to make this stuff because he's a filmmaker's filmmaker. So yeah, you know, keep doing what you're doing, man. But just like Wes Anderson, if you're listening, and I know that you are, come on the podcast and let's talk about it because I'd love to pick your brain. And then yeah, just tone down the art by 5% and increase the entertainment by 10%, and boom, we're good to go. All right, kids, we are now going to move on from movies that I have seen to movies that I will see because there are a lot of heavy hitters, and some of them are coming faster than others. And one of them in question is the upcoming F1 movie starring Brad Pitt. Yes, kids, this movie releases this month. We are now just weeks away from F1 hitting theaters. There is a new trailer online, as well as two new posters, and the first reactions are coming out as well, and it all looks and sounds incredible. The trailer alone is great. In my opinion, though, the first trailer that they released is still the best one. I think that that thing just set such a great tone, and it showed off some really cool sequences. This latest trailer, I think, really painted a grand picture of this movie, and it really feels luxurious. This thing feels expensive, and rightfully so, because Apple paid the bill for this one. And look, they could write blank checks all day long. I've heard that they spent upwards of 200 mil, perhaps even 300 mil, because they're really going for authenticity with this. I heard that they built, you know, real replica cars, real replica tracks. Like they're trying to get as much of this for real in camera as possible. I don't blame them because this is coming from the director of Top Gun Maverick, who did the exact same thing with fighter planes. And so I'm sure the people at Apple were like, "Hey, you did Top Gun Maverick with Tom Cruise. You got jets and crews. Well, now we're giving you cars and Pitt, Brad Pitt to be exact. Go." And he did. And so now here we are. And they did release two new posters alongside the trailer as well. One of them being the Dolby Cinema poster, which looks incredible. This looks like a real piece of art. I love that. The white and the black and the gold there. That's really, really sharp. But this other one here, this one right here, this looks incredible. The sunset with the orange and the black of the car and Brad Pitt and his white jumpsuit, his driver's suit there. This one reminds me a little bit of Top Gun there. And yeah, that's not a mistake, as I previously said. So yeah, this looks incredible. I can't wait for F1. This is gonna tide me over until Superman gets here, because man, this thing is gonna be just such a ride. I can tell the way that the camera is positioned in these shots throughout the trailer. Like, I mean, it looks like you're gonna get really intimate with the car and the driver. And I know this is a cliche of these racing movies, but I think it's the truth. I think they really want you to feel like you're in the cockpit of the car, and I think they're gonna, master that completely. And then with the first reactions, we got a couple here, and they're all saying the same thing. It's fun, it's fast, it's a thrill ride with a lot of heart, leaves no stone unturned. One here says, it hits the gas and does not stop. The music and the races are incredible. The sound design is excellent going on. People say it's incredible. It doesn't lose any of its sizzle while also pulling at your soul there. People say it's a thrilling adrenaline rush. I mean, these reactions here are just phenomenal. It's like that's what I want. Like, the last thing I'd want is for these things to come out and be like, "Yeah, it's okay. It's good, not great." There's a lot to like, but a lot to dislike. No, all the ones I've seen thus far have been great. And in my opinion, everything about this thing has been great. Trailers, great. Posters, great. Reactions, great. End product, it's pointing towards great. So yeah, F1 looks to be like it'll be an incredible film. I'll be seeing this one with my mom, and yeah, we can't wait. It comes out in just a couple of weeks. So F1 in theaters this June. All right, kids, and last but certainly not least, we have to talk about Superman because so much has happened with this movie since we last got together. Initially, there was just one new trailer and one new poster alongside some new images to talk about. But now, in between recordings of the podcast and to mark that the film is now 1 month away and that the tickets are on sale for the movie, there has been a whole other trailer released alongside new posters and new images. On top of that, there's also new information about the film's marketing budget versus its actual production budget and how this could affect the overall film. We have a lot to discuss, so let's just dive right in and let's start things off by talking about that first trailer, technically the second trailer, the one that was released on May 14th. I really dug it. I really enjoyed it. I liked how in the beginning of it, it showed us a scene very akin to a classic Superman scene, which was Lois Lane interviewing Clark Kent. Of course, in this iteration with this movie, we have Rachel Brosnahan interviewing David Cornsweet, and in the 78 movie, we had Christopher Reeve being interviewed by Margot Kidder. So I like that parallel as well. But in this scene, what I like here is that there appears to be kind of a more in-depth conversation. Like in the 1978 version, it was almost like a first date. They asked kind of these magazine questions like, Superman, do you have a girlfriend? Can you fall in love? What's your favorite thing about Earth? So on and so forth. In this one, though, in the new 2025 film, what we're seeing is a much more in-depth and detailed conversation about, frankly, culture and what is correct versus what's not correct. Because in the trailer, we see Lois kind of sort of grilling Clark Kent as Superman because in the trailer, Clark Kent says, "You can interview me as Superman." So this is him speaking as Superman. And apparently, one point of the movie is that Superman goes overseas into some foreign country and stops some kind of conflict. And we have seen bits and pieces of that in other trailers and other marketing material, but apparently that's not just a cool action sequence. That's actually like a part of like the overall plot, the overall crux of the movie. Because in the scene here in the second trailer, Lois Lane is saying, look, you went overseas and you went into this foreign country and you did it without the US's permission. And Superman kind of, balks at that. He's like, permission? Who says I need permission? And Lois keeps talking about how, well, you should have considered, how the US and this country interact with each other, how your actions could affect relations with this country because you represent America. And they don't explicitly say it, but Superman is getting to the point that yes, he is an American. He was raised in America. He was raised in Kansas, to an adoptive American family. But even though he is technically a U.S. hero, he goes beyond just being an American. He's a hero for the entirety of the world. And he actually gets kind of agitated in this trailer because, he's saying like, really, you're going to like lay into me on this stuff? And, Lois is like, I'm not the one being interviewed. It's you. And he's like, if I didn't intervene, people were going to die. Like for him, it's that simple. There isn't this whole thing about how, like, yes, I'll do what's right, but if the U.S. says so. Yes, I'll do what's right if the president says so, or so on and so forth. He just feels that he has to do what's right for the entirety of the world, which I really appreciate because even in like our actual literal culture of Superman, the character itself has shifted from an American superhero to really an icon for the world, which I feel is correct. I mean, he pretty much is the superhero, the bona fide superhero. I think when people think of superheroes, they might think of perhaps Batman or Spider-Man, but really it's Superman. He's kind of the quintessential character for the whole medium and pop culture. And like previously with the character, there was this moniker attached to him that was, Superman stands for truth, justice, and the American way. And in later iterations of the character, that moniker has been altered a bit to where the wording is something like he stands for truth, justice, and the way of the world, or the human way, or humankind, so on and so forth. And I actually kind of agree with this because, again, I think the character goes beyond one country. I think he truly does represent hope in that sense. And so I like that in the film, they're pulling on literal cultural touchstones. I think that's a good thing. And I think it'll make for a more interesting movie overall, ultimately. And then a little further in this trailer, we actually see Superman being arrested by a couple of different characters, as well as what looks like to be the U.S. Army. So I wonder if this is, if this is due to him engaging in this foreign country. I wonder if, he technically broke U.S. law and they're arresting him and they're pretty much taking him to task here because they kind of throw him down into the ground and whatnot, and the road breaks beneath him. And then there's this shot here of Lex Luthor looking all smug as if he's like looking down from inside a skyscraper watching Superman get arrested. Again, I don't know if these scenes even happen, sequentially. I don't know if they're chronologically correct, but it does appear that he is taking some joy in Superman either failing or getting kind of you know, um, affected by what he's done recently. Perhaps the public, isn't really, hoorah on him doing these certain things, which we've also seen in the trailers as well, because at one point he is walking through a crowd and people are throwing stuff at him and they're shouting at him. I don't know if that has to do with, again, the foreign country or if this has something to do with another battle happening in the city, because we do see that other battles take place, but it is interesting to see nonetheless. And speaking to that, we of course see other conflicts happening in Metropolis. We see skyscrapers falling over. They really like to show this battle happening between this kaiju type creature thing, which I'm sure will be a cool set piece. I gotta be honest though, I'm not really over the moon about Superman fighting some nameless monster. I kind of wish he was fighting someone with more significance, but I'm sure it'll be, a cool set piece nonetheless. But like, I just wish it was more Metamorpho focused or, Lex Luthor focused. But again, I'm sure they can't, give full context for this because that might be a spoiler. But yeah, then we see a very cool shot of Superman getting knocked down into the ground, and then we have a civilian helping him up, which I really, really appreciate. And look, of course, Superman is incredibly strong. He can lift buildings. He can fly. Does he really need help getting up? No, probably not. But I like the fact that in this moment of him getting the wind knocked out of him, that a person runs down and lends his assistance. I really, really appreciate that. And in a world where Superman can lift us up, we ourselves are lifting him up, which is pretty great. And then as the trailer continues on, we see shots of Lex Luthor entering the Fortress of Solitude. Looks like he's going to be breaking into that. That's pretty crazy. So we see him flanked by his goons, and they're going after the robots in the fortress as well as Crypto. So that's going to be a pretty crazy scene, and we get to see some cool action with Crypto going on, which I really appreciate. And then also we see what looks like at one point Superman gets captured and that he's being held by Lex Luthor and perhaps Metamorpho. We get some cool shots of him as well. And potentially we get a shot of Metamorpho with what looks like to be kryptonite. It looks like maybe he's altering one of his limbs to have a kryptonite type glove to subdue Superman. I don't know much about Metamorpho, but I think, with his body being made up of different materials and different colors, it looks like he might be able to, alter his very matter itself. And so if he is able to literally turn one of his hands into, kryptonite to take on Superman, that's pretty crazy. That's a pretty powerful, ability there. So that'll be pretty cool. We then get some cool shots of Superman just doing other heroic stuff. A really cool montage here. Lots of cool colors. Lots, there's good music in this as well. We get some good interactions from Ma and Pa Kent. Pa Kent saying how, you need to do what's right and your actions define you. And then we have Ma Kent being very motherly, saying that, in the time for Superman to suit up, she's going to go get his boots because she just cleaned them, which I really appreciate. And then the last shot of the trailer here is very nice. We see Superman lying on his bed back in Kansas at the Kent farmstead, and Crypto is laying on his chest. And yeah, it's really nice. I really like the trailer overall. I think it presents a lot of greatness for the movie. Like, I'm already in on this movie. I did not need to see a second trailer. Like that first one to me just it was a grand slam. And so between the first trailer and the second trailer, while I did enjoy the second trailer, I actually prefer the first one more, just because I thought the music was better, I thought the tone was better, and like I don't need to see any more. Like I'm already there. You already struck oil with me. So like, it's just more frosting on an already good cake. And then alongside the second trailer, we got a new poster, which is a pretty basic, pretty simple poster. It's just Superman standing with his arms crossed, looking towards the horizon. Which I mean, again, I don't mean to just tear it down because like it's not what I want to do. But this does look a little bland in my opinion when compared to the first poster because like the first poster I think is a genuine piece of art. Like I think I could hang that thing on my wall with the flowing red cape that swoops into like the frame of the poster and it almost looks like the aurora borealis. Like it's really gorgeous. And then this one here, it's just a shot of him. There's really nothing fancy about it. Even if they could have made the background a little more dynamic, I thought that would have been nice. Or, maybe if we could have seen him in flight, it would have been cool. But, we have a picture here of, his arms crossed, which, I guess that's kind of a quintessential Superman thing because throughout the decades of him being represented on film, there's always been a poster of him standing with his arms crossed. So, it's kind of what you do. But again, as a follow up to that first poster, I'm kind of like, okay, good, not great. And as a follow up to that first trailer for the second one as well, I'm also like, good, not great. But I do really enjoy the emotional bits that are in this one, especially between Lois Lane and Clark Kent, because the first trailer didn't really give us that, but the second one does. And so, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of emotion. I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about this movie when it comes out about what Superman should do as a hero and as a representative for the world. And I'm really looking forward to diving into that when this movie finally releases. And then alongside the new poster and the new trailer, we have some new images released. We got a shot here of Lex Luthor, which is great. He looks pretty menacing. Looks like he's getting down to business. We have another shot here featuring Lex, but also now with Superman. Looks like they're facing off inside Lex's office, and I really like this set design here. This looks pretty cool. I love that green background back there. This looks like the set from the trailer where Superman throws his desk. So clearly Lex gets under his skin at some point and makes Superman freak out, which will be interesting to see. Then we have another shot here of Lex and Superman being directed by the film's director, James Gunn. So I love seeing those behind the scenes shots of the movie. So that's pretty cool to see. And then we also have this solo shot of Superman released where he appears to be standing in front of the entrance of the Fortress of Solitude. And man, this image is freaking fantastic. I mean, he looks like a freaking action figure. Like he looks so good in this. I love the lighting. I love the color of the suit. I love the color of the crystals for the fortress in the background. I mean, this thing could have been the first image reveal of the new film. Like this is a monumental picture. Like I know it's just a still frame and we have trailers and whatnot, but like this picture, it shows strength, it shows tone, it shows like the care being done like to the material, like the fact that this is an actual set and that it's not just green screen. Like I really like this image. This thing is freaking fantastic. And then alongside the solo poster released for Superman, where he's got his arms crossed, there were new images and new posters released where we have one here of Clark Kent, taking off his glasses, preparing to suit up into Superman as he stands on a busy street in a crowd of people. And then we have the companion image released for this where he's in the same crowd, same street, but now he's in Superman gear. And I really like that because just the differences between these two pictures really do show how David Cornsweet will play his Clark Kent very different from his Superman. I think that's going to be both in terms of look and also in voice and mannerisms. And so I like that we're getting to see that difference there as well. And then alongside those new posters for Superman, the character being released, there are also other character posters that were released as well that cover a bunch of the supporting cast in the movie. Here we have one for Crypto. He got his own solo poster, which I like. I like the cape that he has, as well as the Superman crest on his collar. That one looks really cool. And then we have one here. This is probably my favorite one of the whole bunch. Is we get a shot of Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner for his own poster. And look, I'm a big Green Lantern fan, and like Green Lantern needs his time. He is due for a big screen adaptation. Of course, we're getting a Green Lantern TV show called Lanterns, but like for me, there's something so cool about seeing a Green Lantern come to the big screen and just, not only existing in a live action DC world, but also alongside Superman, which is going to be crazy. Because, like, look, we've had iterations of Green Lantern. We had the 2011 Ryan Reynolds movie, which I think it's overly hated, but it's not good. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's certainly not good. The suit was cool, but it's just kind of so-so. And then, of course, we had that little blink and you miss it Easter egg of Green Lantern in Zack Snyder's Justice League in the Snyder Cut. But we haven't had a proper, rendition of Green Lantern in live action pretty much ever, in my opinion. And the fact that we're getting one in Superman is crazy. And the fact that we're getting Nathan Fillion as a Green Lantern is even more crazy because, like, in a world where we can't have Green Lantern on the big screen or in live action for some weird reason, Green Lantern has pretty much been regulated to the animated stuff, to the direct-to-video stuff. And when a voice is needed for the character, oftentimes Nathan Fillion has been that voice. And so he's had a long tenure with the character. So much so that I think when people think of, casting for a Green Lantern to go to live action, I think people think of Nathan Fillion because they just associate him with the character so much. And to finally get him jumping from, you know, the recording booth and animation to live action is it's just perfect. It's just perfect. Like again, having a Green Lantern in the movie, that's already great, but having Nathan Fillion as a Green Lantern, like it's just for me it's so special, and I really do like this image a lot. I love this poster because we get a good shot of the ring, and of course we get a good shot of him as the character. But what I really appreciate is in this particular frame with the way he's looking and his hair. To me, Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner looks like Spock from Star Trek, and I really like Star Trek. I'm a big Star Trek fan, and so yeah, just getting that nice happy accident there between two of my favorite franchises being DC and Star Trek. I really like that. So yeah, this is probably my favorite poster of the bunch. And then here's this combined shot of the posters, which features a solo poster for Superman's robots, specifically robot number 4, which will be pretty crazy. I've seen some behind the scenes stuff about this robot and how they're actually using like real costumes and real puppeteering for this. Perhaps they're using actual legitimate robots like animatronics, which I'm very excited for. I'm sure they're also using a mix of CGI as well, because I mean, in the trailer, we see these robots like running and throwing punches, but the fact that some of this is going to be an actual practical effect, I think is really cool. Again, I really appreciate how in a world where we're getting a Superman movie, which is incredibly fantastical, we're getting an actual Fortress of Solitude set, we're getting an actual Daily Planet set, and we're getting even a freaking, quasi real robot. Like, I really appreciate that. And yeah, I think that there's so much detail and love and care going into this movie. So I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to it. And alongside those new posters, we got other character posters as well. We got a Metamorpho character poster, which again, as I said, I don't know a lot about him, but he appears to be made up of several different materials and that he can alter his skin composition and turn into different things perhaps. And so the idea that he could again turn part of his body into kryptonite, into that material, that's pretty crazy. I've also seen some behind the scenes shots as well that the Metamorpho character is like actual like there's an actual suit there as well. He's not just computer generated as well. There's practical effects going on with that as well. Of course, there's going to be some touch ups with CGI to enhance it, but the Metamorpho character with all this cool color and texture to it is an actual suit, which again, much like the robot in a world where this movie is off the walls crazy. The fact that James Gunn is trying to do as much as he can for real, in camera, with real effects, I think is really, really cool. And I think Metamorpho is going to look all that better because the majority of him is going to be a real costume and a real effect. And then we got a character poster here for Lex Luthor. And I really like this. I think Nicholas Hoult as Lex is going to go freaking crazy. And what's funny about Nicholas Hoult is that he's been in the Warner Brothers and almost in the DC family for a long, long time because prior to Robert Pattinson getting the role of Batman for the Batman movie by Matt Reeves, Nicholas Hoult auditioned for Batman and he lost it to Robert Pattinson. So he was nearly one DC hero. Nicholas Hoult also said that he auditioned for the role of Superman, and then he lost out to David Cornsweet. So he auditioned for the hero of this movie, and then he ended up getting in the villain role as well, which is pretty crazy because, like, look, I don't think there's any, there's no strife between the actors. I'm sure Nicholas Hoult and David Cornsweet are very, very professional, very friendly on set, and so I'm sure Nicholas Hoult isn't like, oh, I could have been Superman. No, I think he's very happy to be in the movie at all and to be, the main villain, to be, Superman's arch nemesis. I think, he'll do a great job with that, and he's very appreciative of that. However, it is funny in the sense that, like, in some iterations of Lex Luthor, one of his issues with Superman is that Lex sees himself as the savior of the world because he is one of the world's smartest people. He has all this money, all this influence, and all these resources, and he has positioned himself as being someone who can take humanity into their future. He can change the earth for the better. And then along comes Superman, who can do all these things and is loved by everyone and is revered and is saving people and is frankly stealing his limelight. And so in the literal depictions of the characters, Lex Luthor is jealous of Superman, and that's part of why he despises him. And even in the trailer, they go into that as well too, because he's like, Lex says Superman. He's not a man. He's an it. And so there's some real world things that the actors could pull on where if he wanted to, Nicholas Hoult could be like, oh, this is just like the comics. Like, I could have been you, and now here you are. I'm going to use that. So I don't think there's going to be any, backstabbing happening behind the scenes and whatnot. But again, it's funny how the the real world situation of the Superman casting mirrors part of the reasoning behind the character's motivations in the source materials. So I really appreciate it, and I think I think Nicholas Hoult is gonna kill it as Lex Luthor. He's a great actor. He's also in the previously mentioned Mad Max Fury Road, and so if you want a taste of his acting abilities, go check that out. But yeah, I mean Lex guy. I keep saying Lex. For me, he is just Lex Luthor because he just looks that good. But yeah, Nicholas Hoult looks freaking incredible as Lex, and I think he's going to give us a great portrayal of the character, and I can't freaking wait. And then we also got a poster here for Frank Grillo as Rick Flag Sr. This is a pretty basic poster. This one's not really anything special. I really only highlight it just because I like Grillo as an actor. And of course, we got introduced to the character of Flag Sr. through the animated series Creature Commandos, which I did not really care for. But again, everything is connected in this universe from the shows to the movies. And so getting to see Frank Grillo jump from animation to live action as the same character will be pretty cool. And then we get a poster here for Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. I think she's going to do a great job, very akin to how I described Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. I really do see her as Lois Lane. I think she looks the part. I think she's going to bring a lot of humanity and a lot of emotion to the role and to the movie. And so I can't wait to see more of her. And then we get another poster here of David Cornsweet as Clark Kent. This one looks pretty good. I really like the image of him. That one's really nice as well. Then we get a cool poster here of Wendell Pierce as Perry White, who is part of the Daily Planet crew. And I'm a big fan of Wendell Pierce. I got introduced to him through the Jack Ryan TV series on Amazon Prime. That's the one where he stars alongside John Krasinski as Jack Ryan. And in that series, Wendell Pierce is kind of the quasi sidekick to Jack Ryan, as well as kind of the co-lead in that series. And so he's a great actor, and I think he's going to be a real talent in this movie. And so I'm looking forward to seeing him, alongside the Daily Planet crew, including Clark Kent, who is Superman and whatnot. And then we get a poster here of a guy I've never heard of before named Skylar Gisondo. Pardon me if I mispronounce his name, but he's playing Jimmy Olsen. And I like Jimmy Olsen because he's Superman's best friend. And so getting to see another representation of that character on screen is going to be, good to see as well. And so, yeah, these posters are great. Are any of them, worthy to hang on my wall? Probably not. Probably only that first poster, that first initial one released, really only occupies that spot. But I just like the fact that we've now entered the summer of Superman. Like the marketing is kicking off in more ways than one. You know, New trailers, new posters, new images, new information. Like the summer of Superman is freaking here. And yeah, I can't wait. We're so close to the movie. We're just a month away, so it's gonna be freaking crazy. And then, in addition to new posters and new trailers being released and new images as well, there's also new collaborations happening between brands and companies. One of them being Build-A-Bear, which I'm being honest, I didn't know Build-A-Bear was still around. Like, I remember doing them as a kid, and that's got to be 20 years ago. But yeah, I have memories of Build-A-Bear, of going to their workshop in the Mall of America and building my bear. I have no idea where it is. It's probably lost to history. But the fact that they've endured for all these years and all these decades, good for them. God bless them. And they have a Superman themed bear that can be built. And hey, look, I'm sure kids will appreciate it. And I'm glad to see that Build a Bear is still around. And the fact that they're doing a Superman collaboration, I mean, just go crazy. But speaking of companies getting together with Superman, another one is Superman and DC at large are teaming up with Dairy Queen to bring their Superman themed Blizzard to the market. And look, they could have called it something cool. In my opinion, they should have called it Kryptonite Crunch. That was right there. And they could have made it green. They could have had like green mint chips in it, but whatever. They went with the pretty basic Superman cake batter cookie dough blizzard, which is just a play on their cookie dough flavoring, but it's made with blue ice cream instead of standard chocolate or vanilla. So it looks blue and it's got cookie dough chunks in it, whatever. And you know what? Marketing totally works on me. I'm in the bag on this movie. I went to Dairy Queen and I got it. I got the Superman Blizzard. And I'll just tell you right now, it tasted good. It tasted great. It tasted like hope and freedom and strength. It tasted like all that stuff. So I'm in the bag on this. Like they have me by the wallet. So it's, I like seeing that because I'm so excited for this movie. And also speaking of Dairy Queen, I got to see something really cool happen like in front of my face here with my own two eyes. I saw this. My friends and I went to Dairy Queen. This was separate to me getting the Superman Blizzard because I wasn't aware that this was out yet. And so we went to Dairy Queen just, as friends to just, have a good time and whatever. And we got our drinks and whatnot. And all the cups there are Superman themed. That's part of the marketing as well. And so even if you don't get the Superman specific Blizzard, if you get just a Coke or whatever, you're gonna get a cup that has Superman on it. And so we get our drinks and we sit down and we start talking. And one of my friends looks at her cup and she notices that there's Superman on it. And she's like, there's a new Superman movie coming out, really? And like in real time, I got to see marketing work. Like the fact that the freaking cup like started the conversation at our table about Superman, like that's crazy. Like go crazy. Like, I love the fact that Superman marketing is working. I love the fact that it's a talking point, and I love the fact that the movie is freaking everywhere. From trailers to posters to meal deals, to Build-A-Bear. I'm excited for this movie, and I just hope that this is a sign that other people are as well. And I think this movie's gonna be huge. And yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And then we've also got even more images to talk about. We have this cool image here, this quasi poster of Superman looking all heroic with, announcing one more month to the film releasing, which is crazy. The fact that we're a month away, less than a month away, really, is just nuts. And then, my goodness, we have this shot here released via Entertainment Weekly of Superman, of David Cornsweet in this black and white image. And man, this is striking. Like this is a piece of art. Like you could totally print this out, frame this, and hang it on your wall. Like this is crazy. There's something about the black and white and all the texture in that suit and all the detail. Like it looks crazy. Like he looks so freaking incredible as Superman. Like that's just nuts. Then there's another behind the scenes shot here of David Cornsweet and James Gunn working on the set of Superman. Looks like they're standing behind a video village here and looking at some footage that they captured. And this also looks like it's taking place on the Fortress of Solitude set with kind of the cool colors here, the actual literally cool kind of the ice blue colors here. And then in that background there, you have what looks like something that could be connected to the Fortress of Solitude. So I really like that, and I love seeing behind the scenes shots of movies because it makes them seem all that more real. And then speaking of the Fortress of Solitude, we have another look here of Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. And again, what more can I say? This guy looks freaking crazy as the character. He's gonna go nuts. He might steal the movie from me. That or Green Lantern might, but we'll see. But yeah, I love the fact that he's in the fortress here, and that again, this is a practical set with real, crystals and ice flanking him. Like it looks crazy. I love the coloring of this, and so yeah, this is gonna be pretty great. I can feel it. And then speaking of more stuff from Entertainment Weekly, we have David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan on the cover of their magazine, which is great. I love their interactions here. I love how they're really leaning into their characters and the fact that they're in, a phone booth and they're kind of readying themselves for their time out. And then we also have them flanked by the director, the head of DC Studios, James Gunn. Just I really like this. This is just a cool piece of marketing, a really cool image of the three of them. I really appreciate that. And of course, you got Heroes Calling at the end there. I think that's really nice. And then we have these individual shots released of David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan back in that photo booth, and again they look striking. Like they're both just incredibly good looking people, and I think that they're just going to do such a great job with their characters respectively. And then we have another shot released of Superman. It's the same shot that was the black and white shot, but now here it's colorized. And once again, this is just another great look at Superman. David Cornsweet really embodying the character here. I love all these things. These are just crazy. In my opinion, the black and white version of this shot is better. But again, seeing the color popping on the cape and on the blueness from his suit, it really is striking to see. And the collar here as well. I wasn't a fan of the collar initially. I thought it was a little too much detail for my taste, but it's grown on me since it's been revealed as part of the suit. And so yeah, I really like what I'm seeing. I think everyone looks great in their respective roles. And then moving forward, we got treated with yet another trailer for Superman. This is the second one that was released, technically the third overall, and this one marks that the film is now 1 month away. and that the tickets are on sale, which is freaking crazy. I got my tickets for Superman. My mom and I got our advance tickets, so we're all set. But even like when I went to go purchase my tickets, like the theater was already like one third full. Like, so people are chopping at the freaking bit. The fact that there's plenty of people out there who are buying their tickets a month in advance for this film is freaking crazy. But I love to see it. And yeah, with this final trailer here, once again, as I said previously, I don't need to see any more. I'm already in, but I'm gonna watch it because I'm so excited. But I love how in this trailer, this is pretty Lex Luthor focused. We have Nicholas Hoult as the character, really narrating the trailer overall with all the images going on here. And Lex is talking about just how he despises Superman, how he's gonna take him down and destroy him. And he's like, I'm not going to just destroy you. I'm going to destroy that reporter you always do interviews with. And the people who raised you, like, I'm going to kill them too. Like, he sounds like such a menace. He's just out to get him. And I just, I can't freaking wait. Like, this thing is going to be so crazy. And look, for me, again, the first trailer is still the best thing they've released for this movie, in my opinion. But this new trailer is great because it gives us new shots of Superman flying, which are really cool. Look like they're going to be a lot of fun, really dynamic as well, and that's crazy. Then we get some more fantastical bits here from the trailer. We get things that look like they're taking place in other dimensions and stuff like that, or maybe that there's some break in the space-time continuum, and we get shots of Krypto and Superman fighting together, which are crazy. I love the fact that they're like going to be interacting with each other because we have that one shot of Krypto like dragging a guy up through the air, and then he rips off his helmet with his mouth, and then Superman comes in with a mean hook. Like, oh man, it's gonna be crazy. Then we have a great shot here of Guy Gardner and Superman, just standing in front of each other. Looks like they're facing off, not in the sense that they're gonna fight, but that they're stern, they're serious. And as I said, I'm all in on Green Lantern. I'm all in on Nathan Fillion, and just getting to see him interact with Superman in live action is just freaking nuts. Like, that's the shot of the trailer for me. Like, I'm so ready for Green Lantern to come in, baby. Like, I can't wait. And then we get some pretty cool shots here showing off Superman. Again, looks like he's in some kind of pocket dimension or some rip in space. And then we get more shots of Superman interacting with that kaiju, which, like, okay, I'm sure it'll be a cool sequence, but like, once again, like, I'd rather have him fight an actual villain as opposed to just some monster. Then we get a shot here of a Superman using his heat vision to just like destroy like 30 enemies, which is going to be freaking crazy. And yeah, this one here marks that tickets are now on sale. So have you got your Superman tickets yet? If so, you should, because like I said, when I got mine, people already beat me to the punch. And again, this thing is a month away, so you should get them sooner rather than later. And then on top of the third trailer being released, we got even more posters. We got a Dolby Cinema poster, which is really nice to see. This one looks like a genuine piece of art. I really like that. We also got an IMAX poster release as well. And I love this image. This image is not new. This image was released a couple of months ago, but I really enjoy it because it's classic. It's Superman and Krypto sitting on the moon overlooking Earth. Like, that's such a cool piece of imagery here, and I love the fact that they're not just sitting on the moon, but that they're sitting on the actual IMAX logo itself. So I really like that. And then we got another poster here, the Real D 3D poster for Superman. Again, pretty basic, but it's just Superman just looking off into this cool array of light. I actually like this one a little better than the one of him having his arms crossed. I think that this one just kind of just has more color popping to it, so I like that quite a bit. We also have here the Screen X poster for Superman, him catching a building, stopping it from falling. Again, a very cool, very iconic shot of Superman. So I love the fact that we're getting to see that. And then we're also, nowadays with these big movies, every one of them has a cool popcorn bucket that you can buy. There's usually some kind of, cool art with them, or they're kind of like a collectible standee type thing. Everyone has them. Star Wars, Marvel, even Gladiator 2 had their own popcorn bucket. And now with Superman, that's no exception. And one of the ones that you can get is going to be a dog bowl themed popcorn bucket. So yeah, that's nice. Not sure how much popcorn it's actually going to hold. Doesn't look like it holds a lot, but once you eat it, and then you can clean it out and give it to your dog and whatnot, or you could give your dog a whole thing of popcorn for himself. Because why not? We all have a crypto that we could feed back home. So yeah, again, I love the fact that the summer of Superman is here and the marketing is in full swing, and it's just freaking crazy. But moving on now from the trailers, the posters, the images, so on and so forth, there's been some new information released about the movie. I don't know if this is all entirely confirmed. I think it's more of kind of an educated guess or educated speculation. This does come via THR, which is the Hollywood Reporter. They're a very reputable news outlet when it comes to Hollywood and pop culture. I certainly believe their reporting. Do they get everything right? No, but I think in a world where there's a lot of clickbait and AI images and stuff like that, I think that they're pretty solid. And they released an article talking about how the summer blockbusters this year are like some of the most expensive films ever released. Like we have the previously mentioned F1, which has a budget of around 200 to 300 million. We had Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which has a budget of around 300 to 400 million dollars, which is just crazy. And then they're also talking about Superman as well, and how that movie's going to have a crazy budget as well. And the budget itself has not been officially released. I don't think they do that until maybe after the movie itself has come out. There was at one point this idea that the movie would have a budget of around 360 million, which is crazy, but James Gunn shot that down. But typically with superhero movies nowadays, they cost around 150 to maybe 200 million dollars, which is kind of where I thought Superman would fall, because I thought that if the movie, can make upwards of 500 to 600 mil, then it's going to be considered a quote financial success. I myself think that the film is going to cap out at around 675. That was my official prediction, and I still hold true to that. But like here's the thing: is like, well, let me finish my comment on the THR thing, then I'll get to the other thing. But so THR said that the budget for Superman isn't 200 mil, it's 225. That's what they said. And they also said that on top of that, the marketing budget for this movie is insane. They thought that the film itself might spend around 200 mil for marketing, which I held to be true, because with these big blockbusters, what they usually do is that they will spend as much and perhaps even a little more money on marketing than they do the actual budget to make the film itself. Like Barbie, back when Barbenheimer happened, that movie spent more on marketing than it did on the actual budget of the film itself. And that thing shows, because that movie was everywhere, and the proof is in the pudding, because that thing went on to make over $1 billion, billion with an alien. And so that's nothing new. The fact that more money could be spent on marketing than on the actual budget itself. But for Superman, I thought it was going to be 200 for a budget, 200 for marketing, and then you have to take into consideration as well the theater cuts that the theaters will get nationwide for showing the movie, which is roughly about a third of the total box office of a film. Okay, so let's just keep the math simple. You had 200 for budget, 200 for marketing, and 200 for roughly the theater cut. Call that 600. Well, now THR is saying that the Superman budget itself, its production budget, is 225. So that's a little higher than I thought as well. And they also thought, though, that the marketing for Superman might be as much as $250 million, not the standard 200, nor is it matching the production budget of 225. And if that 250 is true, That's more money than Avengers Endgame spent on their marketing budget. I believe they had a budget for marketing of around 200 mil, perhaps a little more. But Superman, if that figure is correct at 250, that is perhaps the most money a studio has ever spent on marketing a movie in the history of the movie business, which is crazy. However, um, that's a recipe for high risk, high reward. DC and Warner Brothers are going all in on this movie, and rightfully so. As I just said, we're talking about posters and trailers and company collaborations. And then we've also got stuff like new TV spots and everything else in between there. Entertainment Weekly stuff. I mean, Superman is freaking everywhere. And so, of course, stuff like that costs a pretty penny. And so, okay, so let's do some more math here. So if the production budget of Superman is set at 225, okay, that's its production budget. Now let's call the theater cut also 225 as well. So now we're at a cool 450. And then let's throw on an additional 250 for the marketing budget. So in total, that's a nice round figure of $700 million, meaning that figure of 700 mil might be the break even threshold for this movie. That's an incredibly tall order. So, kids, if you see online that the budget of Superman is 225 and say the film makes 300 mil overall, like that's not good. Is it more than its production budget? Yes, but like that doesn't mean it made money. You have to take into account the marketing and the theater cuts and everything else in between. And so the threshold for this movie to be, quote, profitable might be $700 million, which is just crazy. That's a lot of money. That's a very high bar to clear. However, despite that potential bar being as high as it is, there there's some nuances with this conversation that I think are very, very important. Firstly, just for basic comparison, 2022's The Batman roughly had a production budget of 185 to 200 mil, and that capped out at 772 million worldwide. And I'll just say this, at least right now, Superman is not as profitable or as popular of a character as Batman. And so if a Batman movie can pull in 772, do I think Superman can get to 700? No, I honestly I don't know. I'm dubious. Can it get, look, could this film be $1 billion? Sure, it could. I mean, crazy things have happened. But like again, if a Batman movie's pulling in 770 and a new Superman movie with a character that's not as popular as Batman, like, because ask yourself honestly, I mean, speak honestly, who do you like more, Superman or Batman? Like, most people are going to say Batman. I myself, who do I like more? Batman. Like, I saw the Batman in theaters 3 times. I really love that movie. This new Superman one's going to get me a minimum twice. Minimum. Though I think I'm going to go over that easily. But yeah, so a Batman movie pulled in 770. I don't expect the Superman movie to make as much as the Batman. So, can it get to 700? Maybe, but so in terms of finances, this Superman film might be set up for a quote to be unsuccessful, just from a budget, from a bean counting perspective. However, however, I don't think Warner Brothers is particularly worried about this. Here's the thing: is that look, they would love Superman to be profitable, absolutely. Who who among us would prefer to lose money over making it? No one would. We all want to make money, okay? But they're viewing this Superman film as an investment in culture. Okay, they're looking to rewrite culture for their brand because the previous iterations of these characters with Henry Cavill as Superman, Ben Affleck as Batman, and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and various others, those films existed for a decade and they weren't working in the long run. Now, I like some of those movies, but that's the problem. I like some of them. Man of Steel, I think, is incredible. Batman versus Superman is a complicated mess, though I'm trying to force myself to like it. But like that's a problem. The fact that I have to force myself to like Batman versus Superman the movie, that's crazy. Like and also my mom is the litmus test for this stuff. She's never seen Batman versus Superman. I asked her why. She said it's too dark, it's too serious. Like she has no interest in seeing that. A movie called Batman versus Superman should make over $1 billion in its sleep. Okay, it didn't even get to 1 billion. It frankly should have made 2 billion, and it got to like 800. But yeah, with BVS, my mom was like, no thanks, I'll skip it. That's crazy. That's crazy. Batman versus Superman the movie, you had people skipping it. That's a problem. You fast forward now to Superman, to this new Superman. My mom's all in. She loves the trailers. She can't wait. We got our tickets. Okay? So Superman as this movie as a product is going to rewrite cultural dialogues amongst the brand of DC because where Marvel has been winning hand over fist for year after year with Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Guardians of the Galaxy, and of course the Avengers. I mean, their average per film is nearly $1 billion. Now, of course, after Endgame, they've kind of petered off. We have things like Captain America 4, Ant-Man 3, Thor 4, they've been kind of so-so. I like those movies, but I don't love them. So Marvel's on a bit of a decline. Not a free fall, but they're on a bit of a decline. Whereas DC, they can only go up. I mean, I pray to God they can't go any lower than where they have been, because those last couple of movies were not doing well culturally, financially, or critically. Though I kind of like the Flash, but whatever. But like, I think Warner Brothers and DC at large are not so much worried about making money on this. I think they're worried about getting the audiences and the fans back. I think they want Superman to be a groundswell movement to really get the fervor back for DC as a brand, which is frankly what they need. Because as I said, DC has kind of been, getting kicked around this last decade. They had a Justice League movie which was just okay. We only got one of them. Marvel's going on their fifth Avengers movie. Do the math and then look at the books. So there's that. So look, if Superman's break even, if its profitability bar is 700 mil, it's a tall order because again, I put my cap at 675. Do I think it could make over 700? Yes. Do I think it could make 1 billion? Yes. Do I think it will make 1 billion? No. Do I think it will make over 700 mil? I do not. But even if it comes in under, let's say it makes a cool 550, I think Warner Brothers steps back and they go, look, technically we lost a bit of money on this, but people love this movie. Now people are interested in DC again. Oh, and look what we have coming next. Next year in 2026, Supergirl, and then we have a Green Lantern TV show, and then we have a Clayface movie, and then we have another Batman coming out. Like, if they can repopulate DC fans, if they can get people excited for DC as I am, like if they can get people, look, I'm a super fan, like I'll go crazy for this stuff. I ate the Superman ice cream, dang it. But if they can get, close to where I am with this new Superman movie, I think they're going to be over the moon fantastic. I think they're looking for a change in culture more than they're looking for a change in their pocketbook. Butt up, cha. That's a good pun there. But yeah, look again. Warner Brothers would love the movie to be profitable, as would I. I would. A sure sign of audience interest is the dollar figure. So if this thing makes $1 billion, well then you know that people are interested in Superman again, and they're interested in DC. But again, if this thing technically loses a bit of money, I think it'll matter more in the end if the film is good and well received than if it overall makes a buttload of money. So yeah, Superman is coming, and it's coming in a lot of big bad ways, and I can't wait. Again, we are now a month away, technically less than a month away from the film coming out. Tickets are on sales, posters are out there, trailers are online. There's interviews galore with the cast and the crew. Like, we're here, baby. The summer of Superman is here. and we'll just have to wait and see what becomes of the film, both culturally and financially. But I think look, sky's the limit. I really think this thing is gonna crush. I like James Gunn just seems to be doing something so incredibly fun, so colorful, so inviting to people that I think it's gonna win people over. I really do. So I think it's gonna be a success in almost every way possible, and I just can't wait for the film. In 1 month, we will all be looking up, and that is my show for today, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you so much for listening. Thank you for continuing to check out the Far Out podcast. I really appreciate it. A good friend of mine, my best friend in the whole wide world, we had a conversation about the podcast, and I said, I always have a hard time ending the show. I never know how to give it a proper send up without it feeling abrupt. And then, of course, Sojourn One made that great piece of outro music, which you'll hear at the end of this episode. Shout out, Mr. Sojourn. And so my friend and I, we were talking and whatever, and he's like, "Well, your podcast is called the Far Out Podcast." So he's like, maybe now what you should do is to close the show. You should have a quote far out fact, like a cool factoid to send people off with. And I thought, that's a good idea. I think I will do that. And so I curated what I consider to be a cool or far out fact. And this has to do with the shrimp, the water bug that we all like to eat and whatnot. And so my far out fact is a shrimp fact, and it is that shrimp are omnivores. Shrimp like to consume microplastics and plants and other animal matter, and they filter water wherever they go. And so, effectively, the shrimp of the ocean are cleaning our oceans, and what could be cooler than that? And so, yeah, the shrimp are pretty cool, and yeah, I consider them to be far out ultimately. So, yeah, that's your far out fact to end the show here. All right, Mr. Sojourn and Mr. Shrimp, take us home.